Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
So I want to start today's show by differentiating, and I want everybody to listen to this. This is very important. There is a difference between what I would do and a, similar discussion about what I think somebody else would do. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay. So, for instance, when it came to COVID, I didn't like wearing a mask because, I think I have a very handsome face, so I like showing it, but I would wear a mask. Some people would get on airplanes when they said you had to wear a mask, and I don't want to wear a mask. That's my freedom. I don't want to do that. So, there's a difference between what I would do and what somebody else would do. I think I've made it pretty obvious, let it be known, that if it were me, and it came to the NFL draft on Thursday and I were the Titans, I would prefer Anthony Richardson. I think I've made that abundantly clear. I love Anthony Richardson. I think Anthony Richardson has all the talent in the world. In fact, I went back today and I watched Patrick Mahomes made one start for Kansas City as a rookie, and I wanted to see what Mahomes looked like and compare it to what maybe these guys will look like. That's how much I've been thinking of it. So I love Anthony Richardson. But just because I like Anthony Richardson doesn't necessarily mean that the Titans will like Anthony Richardson. And I walked away from the Ran Carthon press conference yesterday thinking that they liked Will Levis. Now, maybe I was biased because I went into it thinking that they probably liked one of the guys more than the others and that it was probably Levis. And I'm not exactly sure where I got that from, but I did feel that way. Then, all of a sudden, this morning at 6 a.m., Joe Rexrode sent me a text, which, look, normally I wouldn't say I'm normally up by 6 a.m., but I know Joe's on the air at 6 a.m. 6 a.m. is early for me, man. So Joe texted me at 6:24 a.m. and said, Team Levis, with an article, with a link to his article on The Athletic. Now, I had gotten off the air on Sirius last night at 11. So, and being on the radio, it's a performance, so it's not like you could just get off the radio and go to sleep. I mean, it's just, at least I can't do that. So, I watched the end of the basketball game, and then I watched some more people talk about the draft, and then finally I fell asleep. So, Joe wakes me up at 6:30 to say that he thinks the Titans are going to go with Ran Carthon. They're going to go with Will Levis. Joe writes in The Athletic, quote, listening to Ran Carthon talk Monday about conversations with quarterbacks, about their college concepts, and seeing what translates to help illuminate the answer here. Levis is the guy, Joe writes at The Athletic. Quote, he played at Kentucky in the same offense the Titans run, the modern West Coast, and he flourished in 2021 under offensive coordinator Liam Cohen, who came from the LA Rams and then returned to the Rams last season to be their offensive coordinator. Levis's performance suffered, presumably thanks in part to the loss of Cohen, to a bad offensive line in front of him, and to multiple injuries. Joe thinks they like Will Levis. Somebody else texted me, and you know who this is, but I'm not going to say it because I didn't ask if I could say this. But somebody texted me yesterday after the press conference and said, and this is somebody who I don't think they're anti-Levis, but I certainly don't think that they're pro-Will Levis. And they said, man, this is 2:50 yesterday. Somebody who covers the team texted me and said, man, I really think they're going to go Levis. And I said, the only reason they might not take him is that the Texans may take him first. And they said, we'll see. So I think there is a consensus here that the Titans like Will Levis. Now, just because they like Will Levis does not mean that I like Will Levis. I guess I like Will Levis. I understand how you could like Will Levis. I see the size. I see the arm. I see the offense. I talked to Liam Cohen, his offensive coordinator, and of course he's going to be biased when it comes to, oh, Jared, he's a great kid, especially because it was on the air. Oh, Jared, he's a great kid. Oh, Jared, he works so hard. Oh, Jared, he's so smart. He gets the game, and so on and so forth. But I also don't think Liam Cohen would have taken time out of his day to go on with me if there wasn't a reason why he wanted to do that. He wanted to do that for the kid. I don't think it means much to Liam Cohen if Will Levis goes number 1 or number 4 or number 10 or number 30. I mean, Liam Cohen, he's making $1.5 million to be Kentucky's offensive coordinator. I don't think it matters. But I just get the sense that they love Will Levis. And I don't know exactly what it is. When I watched the Georgia game, again, they only scored 6 points. And Levis made a horrendous decision on an interception in the end zone in that game. But he played that game with a shoulder that got shot up before the game and a toe that got shot up before the game. He leapt off the toe on a third down in order to pick up a first down. And he laid on the ground and had to come out for a play. And boy, when he was out for that one play, they just looked so discombobulated. But he ran right back on the field and got right back in the game. And it was obvious he wasn't right. And he gave his team a chance to win. And when I saw that, I thought, that's what Mike Vrabel would appreciate, is somebody who doesn't care about his stats. And I never got the vibe that Levis cared about his stats. His stats stunk. A guy who never complained. I mean, remember when Jadeveon Clowney was at South Carolina and everybody assumed that he was going to be the number one pick and he had bruised ribs and didn't play? And Steve Spurrier was, well, you know, when Jadeveon feels like playing, I guess he'll play. That's not Will Levis. Jamar Chase showed up to LSU's practice in 2020 without Joe Burrow, without Justin Jefferson, without Clyde Edwards-Helaire, without Randy Moss's kid at tight end, without that offensive line, without Grant Delpit on defense. He spent 2 practices there, and he opted out. I don't know Jamar Chase. I don't think he was worried about COVID. I think he looked at his team, and he said, these guys suck. Will Levis didn't do that. The offensive coordinator at Kentucky, he was terrible. I was listening to him talk yesterday, Phil Simms on NFL radio, and they were talking about Rich Scangarello, the offensive coordinator there. And apparently one of the hosts on NFL radio said Emmanuel Forbes, the corner for Mississippi State, said that he had a pick 6 of Will Levis. And again, we asked questions about how do you throw all these interceptions? And apparently Emmanuel Forbes, and I didn't hear it, but this is what Jim Miller, a former NFL quarterback, said Emmanuel Forbes said on their show. Apparently Emmanuel Forbes said, oh, yeah, no, we saw, we knew what play they were running. They were going to run that wide receiver screen, and I just jumped it, picked it off for a pick 6. It was the easiest pick 6 I've ever had in my life. In fact, when I watched the Georgia game, they ran those wide receiver screens where the tight end was supposed to clear out a DB, and he never did. And by about the 3rd or 4th time, I was yelling at the TV, why are you calling that play? And again, that guy's already been fired. He also was an NFL offensive coordinator with the Broncos under Vic Fangio, and he got fired after 1 year there too. So he stinks. So I know that there's excuses to be made for Levis, and I can argue both sides of it when it comes to Will Levis. And I hear you guys that say, he's Jake Locker. I don't agree with that. I think he's an infinitely better passer than Jake Locker. I think he's certainly a more accurate passer than Jake Locker. I think he plays in a better system than Jake Locker. I think he plays against tougher competition than Jake Locker did when he was in college in the Pac-12, although USC was good there at the beginning of Jake Locker's tenure. So I understand why you guys don't like him, and I know you don't. And again, he wouldn't be my choice. If there was a guy to fall in love with, it'd be Anthony Richardson. But I'm just telling you, I look at the Titans. I look at what I hear. I think they like Will Levis. I think that's the guy. I think they're having discussions about when to trade up, how to trade up, who to trade up with, who to sit back at 11 for, who to trade back with if they wanted to go non-quarterback. I think they've had all those discussions. I think everything is on the table. Rand Carthon said that yesterday, and I think a lot of people took that as in one ear, out the other, and I didn't, because I think that's definitely the case. But if you're the Titans, you walk into this draft and you're, okay, best case scenario, what do we do? And realistically, you're not getting Bryce Young. Best case scenario, what do we want to have happen to us? And maybe it's a total smokescreen. We can't say it's lying season and then not accuse people of lying or not hear things and think, well, maybe this isn't the truth. But just based on what I heard yesterday and what I know about Will Levis and what I know about the Titans, I think the Titans like Will Levis. The fact that they care about the concepts of watching on the tape what these guys did in college and what will carry over to the NFL. Will Levis's offense, the same offense that you run, I'm pretty sure that will carry over. I feel like they like Levis. Then Joe, and if you listen to this show enough and you hear Jared versus Joe on Wednesdays, I think you know that we don't agree on everything. Joe thinks they like Will Levis. Somebody else who covers the team texted me yesterday and said he thinks they like Will Levis, and it is another person who I don't often agree with. And it's funny because when I say things like, I think they like Will Levis, somebody, well, why? How could you like Will Levis? How could you? I didn't say I like Will Levis. Which, I mean, I like Levis more than you do. But, I mean, I like Richardson. I'm a Richardson guy. I told somebody today, I said, if it were up to me, and I don't have a board, you know, I'm not Mel Kiper Jr. or anything like that. But if it were up to me, and you said, Jared, you know, who is the one player in this draft you want? It would be Anthony Richardson 1, Bryce Young 2, Tyree Wilson 3. That's just me. But I'm telling you, I think they like Will Levis. Joe thinks they like Will Levis. And the thing about this is, when it's the team that I cover, or the team that Joe covers, or the team that we know, sometimes there's just little things that I can pick up on, or that Joe can pick up on, that says, you know, oh, yeah, you know, this is a... And that's what I see when it comes to the Titans and these quarterbacks. Just when they talked about concepts and offense and, you know, compatibility, and when Rand Carthon talked about the importance being getting to know these players and then admitting that he didn't meet with C.J. Stroud, but Vrabel and Tim Kelly did, it makes me think they like Will Levis. And apparently Joe thinks the same thing, and he wrote it this morning. And somebody else whose opinion I think you guys trust more than me, who covers the team, texted me yesterday afternoon and said, I think they like Levis. So, again, don't be mad at me. This is not about, well, Jared likes Will Levis, which, again, I do like him more than you guys do. But I think that that's who the Titans like. I could be totally wrong, but that's just the vibe I get. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I absolutely think the Titans are thinking quarterback Thursday night. Now, that doesn't mean that it's quarterback or bust, and that they don't have contingency plans, and that they don't have backup plans, because I think they'll walk into this thing with about 1,000 plans on Thursday night. But I do think that right now they're thinking quarterback, and I don't think they're hiding that. I think they're okay with it. I think they're okay with people knowing that. 615-737-1025. Now, if you're one of these Will Levis haters, and I know you exist because I take your phone calls and I read your texts, if you are a Will Levis hater, I have some good news for you. Even though I think the Titans like him, we'll get to that next. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in today. 2 days until the NFL draft, or I should say 2 more shows until the NFL draft. I don't know, like, Ian, is this 2 days until the draft or 3 days until the draft? How many days until the draft?
How about 2 nights? 2 more nights.
2 more nights until the draft. Speaking of the draft, tune into the best draft coverage right here, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, for the first 3 rounds on Thursday, April 27th and Friday, April 28th. Coverage is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, the new Cumberland.com, Smoky Mountain Tops, Parman Energy, B&B Flooring, and the Nashville Sheriff. And join me, D. Mace, and Chris Sanders as we will be live from Twin Peaks and Cool Springs on Thursday night, home of the 29-degree draft. And then on Friday, be sure to join Caroline with D. Mace and Chris on location as they will broadcast live for day 2 of the draft this Friday at the Inglewood Wingstop at 3300 Gallatin Pike, where Flavor gets its wings. And the first 100 people to stop by during the draft will receive a coupon for 5 free boneless wings with their next visit. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for The Game.
Want to jump into the mind of a 15-year NFL vet? Well, here's your chance. D-Mace. It's Ask D-Mace.
Come on, bring them on.
Ask questions on football and life to Derek Mason every Friday at 12:30 on Ask D-Mace.
Don't mess with her. The skilled guy. Money reigns supreme.
On Caroline, Willie, and on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
33 hours of savings this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Electronic Express. These deals are so hot they only last 33 hours. Get a Hisense 65-inch 4K TV for just $349 or a JBL Bluetooth speaker for just $59. Save up to 50% on 4K TVs, computers, housewares, appliances, and more. Don't miss out on a Go Wise air fryer for just $79 or an Amana laundry pair for just $449 each. Now through Saturday. Shop online or at all Electronic Express locations.
The team at Mercedes-Benz of Music City have done it again. Here's Edwin Vickery to explain.
4-time recipient of Best of the Best. Less than 10% of the dealers in the country receive this award. How did you do it? We say culture eats strategy for lunch, because we can strategize all we want, but unless you have the right culture and chemistry in the dealership, it will not work.
Live the dream at Mercedes-Benz of Music City, mbofmc.com.
Hey, it's Withrow. Regal Realty Group and Monarch Title have made it even easier for you to buy or sell your house. Their updated website is very helpful for buyers and sellers with a list of communities and featured listings and answers to questions you may have when selling. Take a look around at regalrg.com. You'll find your new home with their super easy search bar. Regal Realty helps from contract to closing and everything in between, like inspections, appraisals, and paperwork. Let them do the heavy lifting and make it easy for you. Everything you need is at regalrg.com.
Did you know that more than 4,000 children in Nashville are experiencing homelessness right now? And across Middle Tennessee, that number grows to more than 9,000. Hi, I'm Jamie with Souls for Souls, a global nonprofit based right here in Nashville, and we're on a mission to provide these kids with a brand new pair of athletic shoes through our For Every Kid program. Because we know that something as simple as a pair of shoes can change a child's future. Students who receive these new shoes tell us things like, I can't believe these shoes are mine. I finally have something new of my own and don't feel left out. And my feet feel like they can breathe. We're joining forces with our friends here at 102.5 The Game for the second annual Music City Celebrity Golf Tournament to help provide new shoes to kids across Nashville. It's all happening June 7th at the Hermitage Golf Course. Come join us for an afternoon of fellowship and fun, all in support of a great cause. Go to thegamenashville.com for more information and to register.
Anyone want to tell me what happened?
Did you miss any of today's show?
It's okay. It's fine. Don't worry.
Subscribe to the Stillman and Company podcast on Apple, Spotify, and other podcast platforms, or by going to thegamenashville.com.
All right, I'll give it a shot.
You're listening to Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Maybe the number one overall pick, as Reddit was reporting today. What happened with Will Levis, you think, during this process?
Yeah, I've learned something over doing the draft stuff. Never dismiss anything. I don't care if it comes from Reddit. I don't care if it comes from the postman. I don't care if it comes from the guy who served you your sandwich at the restaurant. Yeah. There's nothing a sure thing at this point. So you don't ever dismiss anybody. But I think Bryce Young's the first quarterback. Will Levis could very easily be the second quarterback. I've heard he's actually had great meetings with teams, and he's well liked by a lot of buildings. The connection with the Colts, there's no natural connection with saying, well, the offensive coordinator coached him here and this guy likes him here. I just have heard from a lot of people around the league, mostly from people outside the Colts building, that they are hearing that there's a bunch of fans in that building, and it's been that way for quite some time.
There you go. That was Peter Schrager on the Pat McAfee Show. Finally, somebody who does not work for ESPN, old Peter works for Fox, that says the Colts like Will Levis. And he's saying he's hearing it from other people that the Colts like Will Levis. Now, I think the Titans like Will Levis, but all this Colts-Levis talk, it reminds me of during the 2019 draft. We were on the stage at Bridgestone Arena. Did I say 2017? 2019 draft, the one that was here. And we were on the stage, on Broadway at Bridgestone Arena, overlooking, kind of everything that was going on down at Lower Broadway. And we were talking early on, I think before the clock had started. It was me, Floyd, and Derek. And Floyd was talking about the Jags. And I want to say the Jags had like the 7th pick or the 6th pick in that draft. And he said they love the tight end out of Iowa. Just talking about TJ Hawkinson. And ultimately, Josh Allen, the pass rusher out of Kentucky, fell, and they ended up taking him over Hawkinson. But I said, how do you know that Jacksonville loves Hawkinson? And he just looked at me with the, son, don't question me, look in his eyes and said, they love the tight end. And so it sounds like when it comes to the Colts and Levis, it's like, oh, no, son, don't question me. They love Will Levis. Now, here's what's crazy. I think the Titans are pro Levis. I think that the Titans, of all the guys, and this may honestly include C.J. Stroud. I don't know. Because they did not bring in C.J. Stroud for a top 30 visit. And for Rand Carthon to say that the most important thing is getting to know the quarterback, and then he admitted that he didn't take the time to get to know C.J. Stroud, either was a goof up on their part because they thought, no way we can get C.J. Stroud, or they're trying to hide their interest in C.J. Stroud, or they don't want him. I don't know. But, again, it seems to me like they like Levis. He just has a lot of the qualities that they would. But guess what? I don't even know if the Titans can get Will Levis. You heard in that cut that we played, Pat McAfee was referring to Reddit. Now, this may be one of the stupidest things that I have ever heard in my entire life. Ian, did you see this Reddit story with Will Levis today?
No.
Okay, so apparently, I mean, this may be the second stupidest story. The first was the Reddit GameStop stock thing a couple years ago, where people made like $1 gazillion and then other people lost $1 gazillion because they were screwing around with the stock for GameStop on Reddit. But or I guess they were shorting it or whatever the hell they were doing. So with Will Levis, some anonymous nobody on Reddit put out there that Will Levis is telling everybody that Carolina has told him that he is going to be picked first overall. And so he's already planning a move to Charlotte and has told his friends and family. And because of that, people started betting Will Levis, who was like plus 3,000 to go number one overall. They started betting Will Levis. I just looked at FanDuel in the last break. Will Levis is second to go number one at plus 800. So it was like plus 3,000. Now it's plus 800. Yesterday, Bryce was minus 2,000. Now Bryce is minus 1,500. I mean, just stupid. But now there's a rumor out there of could Carolina go at number one? Here's the thing. The Titans, if Indianapolis loves Will Levis, the Titans can get in front of Indianapolis, as we all know, because the Titans can trade with Arizona. I think we all would agree with that. You can't get in front of Houston. If Houston loves Will Levis, you can't get him, no matter how much you like him. So for all you people out there that cringe when I say, I think just listening to the general manager talk yesterday, I think that they like Will Levis. When Joe writes in The Athletic that he thinks all signs are pointing to Levis, when somebody else who covers the team texted me and said, dude, I think they like Levis, it may not matter because they may not be able to get to Will Levis. And I told you the story at the Super Bowl that I was at one of the parties and I was talking to a former general manager. And I said, what do you make of all this Will Levis stuff? And this was before I dug into it and I hadn't watched any tape. All I had watched is the college football season the year before. And I am not Caroline. I do not plop down in front of the TV on Saturday and just watch college game, college game, college game, college game. I'm not interested in that, and I'm never going to do that. And I'm certainly not going to waste a bunch of time watching Kentucky. So, I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, what do you make of all the Will Levis, in the draft? And this former GM looked at me and goes, oh, dude, I think he's going to go number one. And I was like, what? Go number one? He's like, yeah. I mean, I think there's a real chance Levis goes number one. And the whole draft process, it kind of followed that and thought, yeah, it doesn't look like Will Levis is going to be that hot of a pick. And then all of a sudden, within the last week, either it's the biggest smokescreen in the history of the NFL draft, or Will Levis is a hot commodity. And the Titans may love him. But, I mean, he may go number two. And if he goes number two, I mean, Rand Carthon can love him all he wants. It's like me sitting here loving Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I'd love to have Patrick Mahomes. Guess what? You can't get him. I mean, I would have loved for the Titans to not draft Isaiah Wilson, but instead draft Joe Burrow. Unfortunately, they couldn't get him. And maybe Will Levis is that kind of player. That's what we thought until last week. That's what we thought C.J. Stroud was. And now apparently it's Levis. 615-737-1025. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. LD texts into the text line and says, if you watch the ESPN show On the Clock featuring the Mannings and the episode specifically regarding Levis, I believe you would be all in. That's from LD in McMinnville. Let me say this. Do I have to watch that show, Ian?
I mean, is it good for the show? Is it going to help the people get a more, informative decision-making process with the Levis situation? If the answer is yes, I believe we have to watch.
So then that means I have to watch all of them.
Well, I don't know about all of them, but the ones that are as options for the Titans, maybe so.
I got to tell you, I've listened to so much NFL radio over the last 3 weeks that, my head is about to pop with some of this stuff. I hear all these people trash Hendon Hooker and the offense Tennessee runs, and then I hear Phil Simms. I'll tell you, I love that offense. Hendon Hooker, he's just, boy, I tell you, he's awesome. He's the best. I'm like, wow.
Need a reset to not cloud your judgment, like Rand Carthon was talking about.
So I actually told Chase this yesterday when we were at the press conference, and I said, with all this stuff going on, and how much we talk about it, and how, every day there's a new rumor, there's more gossip, there's something new. I'm like, I wake up in the morning and I could talk about all these players in this draft. And I could talk about these quarterbacks and these schools. And, this quarterback's coach told Bruce Feldman that. And this anonymous source told Tom Pelissero this. And I can do that all day. And then at 6 o'clock, brain shuts off. Can't do it. I have to wake up the next day before I can do it again. And then I'm all day. There's nothing. I don't care about anything else the rest of the day. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We will get to your phones. Caroline says, sorry, not sorry. I mean, you watch all that college football you want. I mean, she hates Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. They go number 2 and number 3. 615-737-1025 here on the program. So Mark Dominic, and he is one of the guys that we've been preaching about over the last couple of weeks. Mark Dominic, former NFL general manager, Nashville resident. Apparently, he's a Preds fan. Mark Dominic was on the midday show today with Chase and Michelle, and he had a take. Normally these guys don't like to farm other general managers' land, but he had a take about kind of what he thinks the Titans should do with these quarterbacks. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025 and your phones. Stillman & Company, 1025-1063 The Game. Let me tell all the fine folks out there not to be sure to check out Nashville's best deal of the week. And it is Bite a Bit in the heart of East Nashville. Get half off a $30 gift card while supplies last at theGameNashville.com/deals. Bite a Bit features all the best Thai food, sushi, and cocktails that you will love. Check them out at biteabitthaiSushi.com.
Hi, I'm Yusi Saros. And this is Smashville.
Now here's a try off to the side. What a stop made by UC Saros there.
You're listening to the flagship of the Nashville Predators Radio Network. ESPN 1025, The Game.
Michelle Knezvik here for Superbook Sports. Baseball is back and the push for the postseason is on for hockey and hoops. Make it all count this spring with Superbook Sports. Superbook Sports is the best wagering app around with a direct line to experienced bookmakers behind the counter in the one and only Superbook in Las Vegas. Plus, get a $250 bonus when you sign up, deposit, and wager all in the same day. Don't let spring pass you by without winning some money with Superbook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789.
312 Pizza Company is your spot for the best Chicago-style eats right here in Nashville. From thin crust pizza to deep dish pizza to Italian beef sandwiches and Chicago dogs. Doesn't get much better than that. Until now. 312 Pizza Company is now serving up their award-winning pizza by the slice. All day, every day. Don't have time to wait for a full pie? No problem. Get a slice instead. Order a full pie but want a little more? Add another slice. Do it. Honestly, just go get a slice. 312 Pizza Company. Nashville's authentic Chicago pizzeria. Go get a slice.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's business cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 3.5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp. Just go to ramp.com/sports. ramp.com/sports. ramp.com/sports.
Tuning into the baseball game, monitoring the incoming storm, catching your favorite talk show. These are just a few of the reasons more than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio each month. And did you know AM radio is the backbone of the emergency alert system, keeping us safe in dangerous times? It's reliable, free, and public safety depends on it. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Green Trees Company Dispensary and 102.5 The Game want to send you to see the legendary Steve Miller Band live April 30th at First Bank Amphitheater. Keep listening to Nashville's best sports talk all week long for your cue to call to win tickets to see Steve Miller Band, courtesy of Green Trees Company Dispensary.
94.9 The Fan is your home for Hit City.
Tonight, your Nashville Sounds return to First Horizon Park to take on Omaha.
Swing and a miss, strike three. Sounds win.
Pre-game at 6:20.
On your home of Nashville Sounds baseball. 94.9 The Fan and The Fan app.
Hey, Nashville, this is Dan Lebitard. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Again, if a team has serious interest, one way or the other, they'll let it be known, and you can have more pointed conversations versus just the standard, hey, you're looking to move up, you're looking to move down, and now that's the intel question. But I think coming into, Thursday, you'll know the teams that are serious, that may want to come up to 11 or, come down to 11. You'll have more of a serious inclination of who they are, and you'll be more prepared to have pointed conversations heading into the draft night.
How do you know that, Ran? I mean, hate to break it to you, you've never done this before. Sitting there talking like this is his 10th draft. Yeah, on Tuesday you'll get a good idea. Wednesday you'll, on Thursday. How many times have you done this? 0. Okay, thank you. But I don't think he's wrong with what he said right there about how, sometimes I think when teams are probably a little bit more direct, it's obvious that they're serious about doing business, and when somebody's kicking the tires, it's obvious that they're just trying to get a little something. So, with that being said, I was listening to Chase and Michelle today. They had former NFL general manager Mark Dominic on the program. Mark Dominic is a must-listen for me, and I absolutely tuned in to hear what he had to say. I think Mark Dominic is the best general manager in the media as far as kind of articulating points and laying things out. And so I was listening to what he had to say about the Titans, and he had this little nugget, and I don't even remember what the question was, but he had this little nugget about the quarterback class and kind of the specifics behind how the Titans, if they're going to land a quarterback, in his opinion, should land a quarterback.
If I'm Rand Carthon, I don't think I'm being aggressive about these two quarterbacks. I'm kind of letting them come to me, because I do know that the next year's class is a really loaded class. If this class is good, I think next year's is even better. And so I don't force it to happen. I let it happen. I think that's an important part that GMs have to do in these draft classes.
Okay, let me start with this. First off, I love Mark. I hate the wait until next year's quarterback class. Because if you're picking 11th, Rand Carthon got up there yesterday and said, we hope we're not picking 11th next year. We hope we're never picking 11th again, because we want to have a good team. So I understand Mark saying, hey, next year's quarterbacks class, well, I mean, I hate to break it to you, Mark, but this team's trying to win. Or at least I think they're trying to win. You know what we say on this program. We want to win. We don't want to almost win. We do not want to pick 11th next year. So that's the first thing. The second thing, he says, wait for the quarterbacks to come to you. Now, what that tells me is that Mark on his board probably does not have 4 quarterbacks in the top 11. So he probably thinks, okay, well, I've got Levis here, or I've got Richardson here, and I think he's the 9th best player, and I think you'd be crazy to take the 9th best player with the 3rd pick in the draft. But I decided to practice what Mark Dominic said. And again, I do think the Titans want a quarterback. I do think the Titans want Levis, And I do think, this idea of, well, they'll just take any quarterback. I don't think that's how this works. I'm sure they like one guy. I'm sure they're okay with another guy. I'm sure they dislike a guy. I'm sure they have different values for all these guys. But let's just take the 4 quarterbacks. And let's take Hendon Hooker out of this for a second. But right now, it's Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis in whatever order you want it to be. I used the ESPN Analytics mock draft simulator, and I did 10 mock drafts. Now, you can do a 7-round mock draft and pick the players yourself. I literally just got to pick 11 and then figured who would be on the board. So he says, wait, don't trade up. And there's a lot of you when I read your texts and I take your phones, and it's like, oh, Jared, I'm fine going quarterback, but we cannot give up the capital and everything that it would take in order to move up. So when I put this to the ESPN mock draft simulator for practice, 40% of the time there was a quarterback who was available. In all 10 instances, well, I shouldn't say in all 10 instances, in the 4 out of 10 instances that a quarterback was available, there was only one. So if you waited 11, there will only be one quarterback, maybe. Levis was there twice. Richardson was there once. And shockingly, on the 8th go-round, Stroud was there. Bryce Young went number 1 8 times. C.J. Stroud went 1 once. Will Levis went 1 once. But again, if you're going to do what Mark Dominic says, because you're going to say, well, next year's quarterback class, you've got a 40% chance of getting a quarterback. If you love these guys, do you want to risk it to that? And let's say you like one guy more than you like the other guys. So in the case of me, for instance, I like Anthony Richardson. And I truly believe right now, and maybe I'm a fool, I think Bryce Young's going 1. I think Will Levis is going 2. And I think Anthony Richardson is going 4. Where I sit today, I think the Colts and all the talk about how much they love Levis, maybe they do. I think they love Richardson. But maybe Stroud goes at 4. Okay, whatever. But if we're going to wait, again, according to this simulator where we try out 10 times, you've got a 10% chance at Anthony Richardson. You've got a 10% chance at C.J. Stroud and a 20% chance at Will Levis. Is that good enough? If you love Richardson, like I like Anthony Richardson, is 10% good enough? Going into the draft saying, well, I really do love this quarterback, and I think he's got unlimited potential, and they say that he's got more talent than Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, and I love him, and I've got a plan for him, and I'm going to start Tannehill, and I'm going to put him on the bench, and I love him, and he's my guy, but I can't deal these other picks. I can't deal that receiver next year. I can't deal that left guard this year. So I'm going to go ahead and take a 10% chance at getting the guy that I really, really like. I don't think that's very smart. Now, I love you, Mark. You know that. But I don't know if I can wait. I don't look at these guys the same. So I understand what he's saying, and I think there's probably a lot of Titan fans that heard that and maybe would feel a certain sense of comfort that, hey, I don't need to trade up. Because a move to 3 would probably be, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, a 4th-round pick, something like that. And in order to do that, and what it would take in order to get that done, it makes me a little nervous now. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Apparently, Arizona is still trying to do whatever they can to get rid of that pick, so maybe the price would be lower for you to move up to 3. The problem is I think the Titans are maybe a little afraid to pick up the phone right now and call Arizona, because the second you pick up the phone and call Arizona, they're going to, as soon as they hang up with you, they're calling the Colts. As soon as they hang up with you. Hey, Tennessee just called. You sure you don't want to give us a fourth to move one spot so we can still take that defensive player we really like? 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. Texter says, Jared should say the day that is the day after next in reference to the draft. Look, man, I'm just going to tell you this right now. I don't know if it's 2 days or 3 days. I think it's 2 days. Because 2 days from right now is Thursday in the middle of the day, and that's the day of the draft.
The day after next works, but, you know.
The draft's in 2 days, right?
Sure, yes, it is in 2 days.
You wouldn't say it's in 3 days?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it's in 3 days either.
That would be including today. So, no, we'll go with 2 days.
Texter into the text line says, Pro Football Network Draft Simulator frequently has Richardson or Levis falling to 11. I think it is unlikely, and Hendon Hooker is commonly available at 41 and sometimes later. The only issue I have with taking a raw quarterback so high is that he will sit for a year and not contribute to this year's efforts to reach the Super Bowl. Even though it is probably a necessary evil these days, not often a future star quarterback will fall towards the end of the first round. Well, that's why I'm not looking to take a star quarterback at the end of the first round. That's why, to me, this is what I would say. I've never had kids. But when it comes to, oftentimes, I think when it comes to quarterbacks and finding a quarterback, it's a lot like trying to find a true love. And I remember when I was single, and everybody used to always tell me all the time, hey, it'll happen when it's right, you'll know, and it'll be when you least expect it. That's what I heard a lot when I was like 24, right? Well, let me say this. When the Titans traded a fourth-round pick for Ryan Tannehill, who had taken a $10 million pay cut, and the Dolphins gave him a $5 million signing bonus, and they traded for him on the eve of the SEC championship basketball tournament, and the Titans held a press conference and said, Marcus is our starting quarterback, I don't think that they knew that they were finding their guy for the next 5 years. And that's exactly what's happened. I certainly don't think they thought that was the guy that was going to lead them to the AFC Championship game or back-to-back divisions and really on pace for 3 straight divisions when he got hurt. But I think it goes back to the relationship angle. If you really love something and you really love someone, the question has to be, how much do you love them? How much do the Titans, and I think they like Levis, how much do you love them? Do you love him to the point that you can't live without him? Because now that would change how I feel about a trade. Do you think that, he and Hooker and Richardson, whichever one falls to us, that's fine. And that's different. And I don't know how much they love him. I know that I do like Anthony Richardson more than I like Will Levis. And that I do like both Anthony Richardson and Will Levis more than I like Hendon Hooker. 615-737-1025. More of your phones. Speaking of Will Levis, there is one element. I know you guys don't like him because you guys think he stinks because he played poorly against Tennessee. But there is one element that is driving me crazy that apparently I'm not alone in. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
Every Wednesday at 8:30. Join Robbie and Rexroad for The Choice is Yours.
2 sports questions, 2 non-sports questions.
They'll answer a couple of questions about life and sports. The Choice is Yours is built by Jarrett Companies. You have a choice. So when you have a need for site and utility work, fire protection, concrete and asphalt services, the choice is simple. It's Jarrett Companies. For more, visit JarrettCompaniesInc.com. The choice is yours. Wednesdays at 8:30 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Attention, buckaroos. It's time for the Franklin Rodeo. So saddle up and hold on to your lasso. It's 3 days of bull riding, calf roping, western wear, funny clowns, and some of the most talented horses you've ever seen. Join the Stampede from May 18th to May 20th. The Franklin Rodeo is held at the Williamson County Ag Expo Park and is brought to you by Ram Rodeo, Franklin Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Williamson Health, Event 1FX, and Wesley Mortgage. Tickets on sale now at franklinrodeo.com. It's a buckin' good time.
This is R.A. Dickey, and I'm proud to tell you about my friends at Smoky Mountain Tops. When my wife Ann and I needed new countertops for our kitchen, we called Smoky Mountain Tops. We wanted to make sure that we worked with a company dedicated to quality, craftsmanship, and customer service. And that's what we got with Smoky Mountain Tops. Go with the pros at Smoky Mountain Tops for any of your surfacing countertop needs. Located in Knoxville and Nashville. Visit SmokyMountainTops.com.
This is Jim Mitchell at Mr. Transmission in Madison. Many of you care about a cure for cystic fibrosis. I care a lot and support the Saturday, May 6th golf tournament at Hendersonville's beautiful Country Hill Golf Course. It's the CureForOurFriends.org 9th annual golf tournament for cystic fibrosis. Tee off at 7:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. on May the 6th. Lots of prizes and sports stars, lunch and dinner provided for each tee time. Sign up at CureForOurFriends.org. That's CureForOurFriends.org.
When the game goes into overtime. But the game goes into overtime. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Pick up Bud Light at your local convenience store today. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch, Bud Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Are you kidding me? Gas prices are up again? Somebody has to do something.
Well, someone did. That's why I use Upside.
Upside? What's that?
It's a free app that pays you back real money for every gallon of gas or diesel you buy. I just earned 25 cents back on every gallon of this tank.
So the Upside app is free and you actually get cash back every time you use it? No strings attached?
Yep, it's awesome. Check it out. It only takes a couple of minutes to sign up.
Instead of just watching your dollars go into your tank, start putting money back into your wallet with the free app from Upside. With the price of gas today, it's big news and big money. To cash out of your Upside cash, just transfer it to your bank account, PayPal, or a gift card. Upside users have already earned over $200 million. Now it's your turn. Download the free Upside app and get cash back on every gallon of gas. Use promo code ESPN10 for an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first fill-up. That's code ESPN10. Use code ESPN10 for an extra 25 cents per gallon back in your first fill-up. Cashback's not available in gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin.
They talk sports.
The Predators get the 2-point, which is obviously what they needed.
They're not making big moves that are jaw-dropping signings in free agency.
They talk life.
Well, I almost just fell down the stairs, so there's that.
My backpack was so heavy, the seatbelt alarm was going off the entire trip.
But most of all, they have a good time.
Here or there.
Yeah.
Chase and Michelle, weekday mornings at 9 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Strong opinions and a strong personality on your drive home. This is Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
As you got to meet Will Levis, did you see the mayonnaise go into the coffee? And was that enough to get him off the draft board?
I did not, and I'm thankful that I didn't. You know, I did see the video. I guess it was a TikTok where it showed him doing it. That was strange, to say the least. I don't drink coffee, so I don't like the taste of coffee, so I can't imagine how it tastes with mayonnaise in it.
There you go. That was it. You know, there's these two stories about Will Levis that I don't really care about, but it's the mayonnaise in the coffee and they eating a banana with the peel on it, and I guess those are big deals on social media. I think they're both stupid, and, you know, make of it what you will. By the way, can we play that cut again? If you listen, Corey Curtis is the one who asked the question. You can hear a woman audibly. You can hear her disgust, and I don't know who this is, but you can hear her disgust when Corey asked the question about the mayonnaise in the coffee.
As you got to meet Will Levis, did you see the mayonnaise go into the coffee? And was that enough?
Oh, one more time, Ian.
As you got to meet Will Levis, did you see the mayonnaise go into the coffee?
That is good. That's funny.
Who do you think that was?
That's a good question.
Okay, let's listen to it one more time and see if we can guess which woman this was. I think we can agree it's a woman's voice, right?
I would agree with that.
Okay, let's see if we can guess who this is.
As you got to meet Will Levis, did you see the mayonnaise go into the coffee? And was that enough to get him off the
I'm thinking it might be Ashley with the Titans.
I don't know her, so I can't say. I mean, we could probably narrow it down pretty quickly.
Right, it's like guess who? You know, it's like, was this person a woman? And so now all of a sudden it's like, flip me over, flip Chase over, flip Joe over, flip Corey over, flip Jim Wyatt over, flip Paul over, flip, you know what I mean? So I know Kayla Anderson was there.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be Kayla.
I don't know. That didn't sound like Kayla to me. Then again, you know, when somebody talks, they have a certain accent. I don't know when somebody reacts to mayonnaise and coffee if they have that kind of reaction. But anyways, this is what I really want to get to. So apparently Will Levis posts a bunch of these mirror selfies, you know, kind of like your local meathead at a Gold's Gym, you know, like, oh, look at me racking up the 30s, you know, whatever it may be. And apparently Will Levis, like, is always posting about it. And I don't mind people that post progress pictures or show things that they're proud of or things like that. But, dude, you're a quarterback. Like, nobody cares. It's like that scene in the movie Varsity Blues when the old uppity football coach yells at the guys who are flexing and goes, I don't care about your muscles. I don't care about your muscles, dude. Can you play quarterback? It's like when Tom Brady got pictured with his shirt off and didn't have a six-pack, and everybody said, that's your body? And he's like, muscles are for work, not for show. And so Will Levis apparently posts these pictures. Well, I don't like it. But I know that when I get mad about something that I don't like John Morant not doing his post-game press conference because he's a sore loser crybaby yesterday after they lost to the Lakers, that people get mad at me. But I was listening to Phil Simms on NFL radio, and they were talking about all the things they like about Will Levis and, you know, things that maybe that they don't like. They talked a bunch of football, and they were transitioning to the next topic or the next quarterback or the next question for Phil. And Phil Simms cut the host off and said, hold on, I'd like to speak about these pictures.
You know, the taking pictures of himself and the other stuff, you know, a lot of teams are just not going to like it. They want their quarterback to blend in. They don't want, you know, it's true. You know, you want a quarterback that's low maintenance and not being out in front. You know, it's Jalen Hurts. I mean, all these guys that even Patrick Mahomes' greatness, he really never steps out of the box that, you know, they kind of want him in. And I think that's important. So, again, I think that bothers teams, and it rubs me a little it rubs me the wrong way a little bit too. I have to say that.
Phil Simms, God bless you. I agree. I mean, it's not a big deal. Neither is the mayonnaise in the coffee. Neither is but like, dude, you're a quarterback. You're supposed to be in shape. Like, when I see this, Will Levis is taking pictures in the mirror. He's taking mirror selfies at the Planet Fitness. I think to myself, dude, you're a quarterback. You're supposed to be fit. Nobody thinks, oh boy, I tell you, I'm really shocked that quarterback has those muscles. I mean, what are we doing? And people say, well, Derrick Henry posts pictures. Right. But Derrick Henry doesn't post pictures of him flexing in the bathroom. Derrick Henry posts pictures of him working out with a bunch of chains on, you know, in 99-degree weather in Texas in the middle of July, because it's like, everybody, I'm focused on the season. Are you focused on the season? It's different. And I just want to say, Mr. Simms, thank you for what you said, because it is, again, it's not the end-all, be-all as far as I'm concerned with, deciding about a quarterback. But I don't like it. And it kind of reminds me of Zach Mettenberger. And I used to think that Zach Mettenberger was just such a freaking, child when he posting selfies and then J.J. Watt sacks him and does the selfie celebration. I was like, man, I felt that embarrassment personally. And so I don't like it. I'm with Phil Simms. It rubs me the wrong way. You heard Phil there at the end. Phil was trying to say, it rubs me a little, and you can hear in Phil's head when he's saying that at the end, you can hear Phil Simms is like, screw it. I don't like it. That's what Phil said. Robbie Stanley texts in and says it's 100% Kayla Anderson. Let's play this one more time. Let's see if we think this is Kayla Anderson.
As you got to meet Will Levis, did you see the mayonnaise go into the coffee? And was that enough to get him off?
I don't think it's Kayla, but I could be wrong there. Keith from Bowling Green says, if Jared compares getting a franchise quarterback to finding true love, he'll never find either. There is a process to finding the quarterback. There's no process for finding love. I disagree. You think
I like
the New
that
England
text.
Patriots?
I like that text, Keith. That was a good one.
Whoever lived? And if there was a process for finding a franchise quarterback, wouldn't everybody operate under the same process? I mean, I talk about wanting to invest in the talent of Anthony Richardson. And you guys yell and scream and go crazy about all the other assets that the Titans would have to give up. And I'm thinking, you do know the Buffalo Bills gave up a boatload of assets in order to be able to draft Josh Allen. But nobody wants to do that. I mean, I don't think that I do not think that there is any set path to finding a franchise quarterback. Just like I don't think there's any set path to finding, a husband or a wife. I mean, I have a bunch of friends that are married and this and that, and some of them met their wives or husbands at a bar. Some of them slid in on Instagram. Some of them met each other on Hinge. I mean, every which way you could meet somebody, that's what people do. It's the same as finding a quarterback. In this case, I like Anthony Richardson, so I want to shoot my shot to go get Anthony Richardson. Caroline Fenton, by the way, I think may have the winner here. She says Jill Jelnick, Fox 17. As far as who audibly gasped at the idea of Will Levis putting the mayonnaise in his coffee.
I could buy it.
Let's play it one more time. See if we think this is Jill Jelnick, Fox 17.
As you got to meet Will Levis, did you see the mayonnaise go into the coffee? And was that enough to get him
I think there's something to that. I think there may be something to that. So we'll keep that one in mind, again, as we're trying to figure out who could not believe the mayonnaise in the coffee. Now the text line's blowing up. I'm trying to get see what people are saying in the text line. Now it's all just guessing who was the person that audibly gasped at... I guess it wasn't a gasp. It was a sound of disgust. It's kind of like something a comic book would have, ew. But it is pretty gross. Elliot says there's a fine line between confidence and, I think we can say this word on the radio, and he's on the non-confident side. We'll just say, I don't think cockiness is away. Somebody said we all saw the shirtless boat picture you had. Lay off of Will Levis. Let me tell you something, man. I am not when I was doing a bunch of pull-ups one time, I was very proud of the fact that I can do like 17 pull-ups at one time. I was very proud of that. But I am not sitting there in the bathroom taking pictures and saying, "Look at my guns, baby." And again, I'm not trying to be a quarterback. You're supposed to be in shape when you're a quarterback. I'm with Phil Simms. If Phil Simms says that it can bother him, I'll say it bothers me. It's not take you off the board bothering. It bothers me a little bit. The rumors surrounding C.J. Stroud's S2 cognition test score. They've taken another turn. We'll get to that coming up next right here, Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
All the big plays.
Tannehill, Henry, right at the middle, touchdown, Tennessee.
All the big stories.
The Titans' window to contend is however long Derrick Henry stays Derrick Henry.
All in one place. We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3.
Gets it back and scores.
Our execution was good.
They have not found their groove.
It's always great to win in this league. It's tough to win.
The Game and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Houston Clinic Orthopedics at TriStar Stonecrest in Smyrna offers world-class orthopedic care. The doctors at this location specialize in hand, knee, shoulder, hip, foot, ankle, and spine. Make better use of your time at Houston Clinic Orthopedics with on-site diagnostics and testing, timely appointments, and easy access to the facility. Get back to enjoying life. Schedule your appointment online at tn.houston.com. Houston Clinic Orthopedics at TriStar Stonecrest in Smyrna. When experience matters, trust Houston Clinic Orthopedics.
Now, your Game Center update.
This is Nick Keiser. Titans general manager Rand Carthon met with the media yesterday prior to the NFL draft on Thursday. He addressed the speculation around quarterback Ryan Tannehill.
So just to let you guys in, Ryan and I had a conversation back in February. That was between Ryan and I and Ryan and our organization. So Ryan knows where he stands with us, and that's really all that matters to me.
And a big signing today out of the major leagues as Brian Reynolds signed a new deal today, the largest in the Pittsburgh Pirates history. The deal comes in at $106 million over the next 8 years for the former Vanderbilt Commodore. And the Nashville Sounds are back at home this week, taking on the Omaha Storm Chasers starting tonight. The Nashville Sounds look to start their series off on the right foot as Omaha is 5-2 on the road so far this year. Catch the action starting at 6:35 p.m. on 94.9 The Fan. You're listening to 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Nashville's exclusive home for the Nashville Predators. 102.5 and 106.3.
A gunny performance. Do your job.
And the Tigers regain the lead.
The Game.
A Cromwell media station.
Where you have a voice.
He had a competent coaching staff. You just play terrible and you keep playing.
And we have strong opinions.
What a whiny freaking crybaby response.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman & Company's delivered by TriStar Moving, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live, thanks to Superbook Sports, live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. About a month ago, I was at the ruins of the pyramids at Teotihuacan in Mexico, and it's amazing to see those pyramids built. And there's stories behind how they got built, but deep down inside, I think we know that when you have something that old, you don't know exactly how those pyramids got built and what they thought they were doing and, you know, what they did in order to get all the materials to be able to put the pyramids together. I mean, it is truly special to see. And it's one of those things that no matter what you think or what you're told, deep down inside, I've just realized I'll never know exactly why it is the way that it is. And that's how I'm starting to feel about C.J. Stroud's S2 score. The idea of, well, it was reported that it was an 18, and then there was some trepidation about what that meant, and then there were people trying to understand how important that was. Then there was some talk about, well, who has access to S2? Then there was talk about, well, is it like the Wonderlook? Then yesterday, Brandon Ally, who is one of the co-founders for S2, was on the Pat McAfee show. And he can't say this, I think, because, and he talks about lawyers here at the beginning. It sounds to me like, well, you know, when somebody says something without saying it, it feels to me like he's saying that C.J. Stroud's reported score of an 18 is either not true or not in context, but he can't say that it was C.J. Stroud. Here's what he said yesterday on the Pat McAfee show.
The day that happened, that those leaks happened, my phone was blowing up from general managers and our attorney, and so we can't speak on specifics. What I will say is the list of scores that I have seen, 2 of those scores are not accurate. They're not accurate at all. And some of the reason could be for narrative purposes. The other reason is that they don't have context. So somebody could have gotten a list of very early scores. One of the athletes on that particular list, I know, had a difficult time making his way to the All-Star game. Things were delayed. He was in high demand. He was hungry, tired. It was 11 p.m., didn't want to do it. He was frustrated. We administered the test because we're asked to. We knew at that point in time, hey, we'll get you again. We'll get you at your pro day, your 30 visit. We did that, and his score is significantly higher than what is being reported in the media.
Okay.
So I'm just saying that. I'm not saying that it was C.J. Stroud.
Okay. Yeah, you're not saying.
Just that for context purposes, the scores that were leaked, there are a couple of them that are inaccurate, and there needs to be context behind that.
Okay. So it does sound that he's talking about C.J. Stroud, right? Like, Ian, it does feel like he's not saying it's Stroud, but he's
It
saying
makes it
it's
feel
Stroud.
that way considering, you know, everyone's been ripping him for his low score.
Okay. So like I said, I think he's talking about C.J. Stroud there. First of all, a couple of thoughts on the, you know, it was late at night. He was tired. He was hungry. Oh, I'm sorry he was hungry. I didn't know he was hungry. I mean, if I knew he was hungry, throw that out. I mean, I think when somebody runs poorly, we should say, hey, he was hungry. That game against the Bengals, Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. He must have been hungry. He was tired. He had a long night the night before watching game tape on the Bengals. He thought about it at the end of pregame meal, which is 4 hours before the start of the game. He said, do I want an extra serving of pasta before the game to get those carbohydrates? No, I think I'll pass. He was hungry. That's what it was. He was hungry. What a joke. So then he's talking about, basically what he's saying is that was not either in context or it was not accurate. But then I was reading Bruce Feldman today in The Athletic, and Bruce Feldman and half the teams in the league, I think they said on Robbie and Joe this morning, 15 teams in the league subscribe to S2. So, so some of these quarterback coaches and some of these GMs have the numbers and some of them don't. And so this was from a Bruce Feldman article today in The Athletic where he talked to a bunch of different unnamed quarterback coaches and scouts and things like that, which is what you're going to hear this time of the year. Quote, to me, that's what flipped me to put Bryce Young ahead of C.J. Stroud. When I saw that S2, it was brutal, a quarterback coach told The Athletic. That's scary. Now listen, if we were in that position, I'd get him to retake that test. Sometimes that happens. Guys get a false read on a test, but I do believe in S2. And, well, if I believe in it and you've got plenty of evidence from looking at the scores and the players that you've coached, you can't discount it or deny it. A second NFL quarterback coach, again, this is Bruce Feldman in The Athletic, a second NFL quarterback coach, a younger one whose team also isn't likely to take a quarterback high, acknowledged that he's been, quote, staring at that Stroud S2 for a while. But I wouldn't say there's a direct correlation because if there was, then everybody would be picking off the S2. So the guy alludes on the Pat McAfee show that that C.J. Stroud score is wrong, but then these other quarterback coaches, and I don't know if their teams have the S2, but it certainly sounds like the first quarterback coach, when he says how much he believes in it, it sounds like he does have the S2 scores. And he said, he's got to take that test again because we have to see if that's right or not. Which makes me believe that he's confirming that C.J. Stroud struggled on the S2 score. And then Tom Pelissero, NFL Network. He talked to scouts around the league. And Tom Pelissero, I was listening to him explain how he goes over this list of quarterbacks. It's not Tom Pelissero's list. What it is Tom Pelissero talks to all these talent evaluators around the league, and then he compiles what they think. In fact, he said, I do not watch these guys play college football. I do not watch tape because, again, he's a reporter, not an analyst, and what he wants is he wants to regurgitate what he's told by the people who are paid to do it, which, as long as you're honest with everybody, I find to be completely admirable. So in the breakdown of C.J. Stroud, in which they said a lot of positive things, he talked about the S2. And it says, quote, Stroud has overcome challenges, most notably the incarceration of his father on a prison sentence of over 30 years when Stroud was 13 years old. Boy, that is tough. He's guarded about certain aspects of his life, and that has been reflected in pre-draft meetings with teams. However, several GMs, scouts, and coaches said Stroud grew on them more the time that they spent with him. And Stroud is more highly regarded in terms of his passing ability and football IQ than some other recent Ohio State prospects. He then writes later, Stroud took the S2 cognition test multiple times and posted low scores, but coaches who have watched the tape and put Stroud on the board were impressed with his processing ability. So Tom Pelissero saying he's taken it multiple times, and multiple times he scored low. So somebody's not telling the truth. Either the S2 people are not telling the truth, or the quarterback coach in the Bruce Feldman story is not telling the truth, or Tom Pelissero at NFL.com, one of the NFL Network's lead insiders, is not telling the truth. So you tell me what you think about that. Yesterday, we took C.J. Stroud off the board. We said if he's got an 18 on that test, and that the executive in the league that told Bob McGinn, if this is true, that 100% of the time, if you're a quarterback and you score poorly on the S2, 100% of the time, you will be a bad quarterback. If that's true and he scored an 18, he's off the board. Now, there's a lot of ifs right there. And I put those ifs in bold. If he scored an 18. If it's true that 100% of the time, if you flunk that test, you are a bad quarterback. If those two things are true, he's off the board. There is no discussing it. If we've got 7 years worth of data, that's off the board. Now, I heard somebody say that they talked to an executive in the league about C.J. Stroud's S2, and the executive said, well, I don't care about that. I watched the Georgia game. That's all I needed to see. All right, well, let's pop in Mariota's performance against Florida State in the college football playoff. You tell me if you want to draft him right now. By the way, I didn't know this until I looked it up. Did you know that Mariota's the backup in Philadelphia, Ian?
I don't think I saw that.
I did not know that either. Shocking. But Mariota was actually a better college player than C.J. Stroud. So I hear what you're saying about, hey, go look at the Georgia game. Right. But, you know, that's college. And I get it. It's all we have to go off of. But this is a standardized processing test. And apparently he stunk at it. Unless somebody is lying about it or he was hungry. And my guess is if he's taken it multiple times and scored low consistently, as Tom Pelissero wrote at NFL.com, my guess is he wasn't hungry every time that he took that test. So what do we believe? Because, again, if we believe that this is totally out of context, or if we believe that it's, lacking truth, the 18 score, and you heard there at the beginning of the clip that we played where the guy said that maybe some of it was from narrative purposes, which I don't discount by any stretch of the imagination. But if it's true, and if that test holds that kind of weight, and everybody who seems to know what this test is says that it does, I'm sticking with him being off the board. I'm sticking with, no, I don't want him. I'm sticking with, again, last week, he was ahead of Anthony Richardson, even for me. And now, Hendon Hooker scored a 46, reportedly. So I'm not sure I'm in love with Hendon Hooker because of that either. But 46 is a lot better than 18. And I guess the S2 guys can't just come out and say, yeah, no, that's not true. In fact, he scored 74. Apparently they can't do that because the NFL teams that purchase this, and there are 15, and they pay a boatload of money in order to get these scores, apparently they own the scores. So when it comes to, hey, why don't you just tell us what the score was? They can't do that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So either the S2 guys are lying, and I know that they didn't say that that was C.J. Stroud, but it sounds an awful lot like they're talking about C.J. Stroud. Or C.J. Stroud is not scoring well on this test. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones on that. Again, we don't know the whole story with this. I certainly am not claiming to know the whole story with this. But there is, if you're a Titans fan, a silver lining about this and C.J. Stroud and your board, and we will get to that next. 615-737-1025, plus, of course, your phones here on Stillman and Company if you want to weigh in, 615-737-1025 here on the program. Tune in for Sounds Baseball tonight at 6:35 on 94.9 The Fan. The Sounds take on the Oklahoma Storm Chasers, the AAA affiliate of the Kansas City Royals. Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by 312 Pizza, Farm Bureau Health Plans, and Family Leisure.
The crowd is standing on its feet. It's in the hole! It's in the hole!
Join 1025 The Game for the second annual Music City Celebrity Golf Tournament, benefiting Souls for Souls, June 7th at Hermitage Golf Course. Put your team together and come play with athletes, musicians, and other local celebs.
Be the ball.
Support a great cause and have loads of fun. Plus, you'll have the chance to win awesome prizes. Sign up to play, sponsor, or donate at theGameNashville.com/golf.
Laying waste to your town. Mastodon. Gojira. The Mega Monsters Tour. May 2nd at Nashville Municipal Auditorium. With special guest, Lord Ashore. Tickets on sale now at LiveNation.com. Total sensory overload. Mastodon and Gojira.
What if you could be credit card debt-free in 10 days and save as much as $1,000 a month? Loan Pronto's all-new Express Equity Line of Credit program is just what you need. Willie Donick here. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a small portion of the equity you have and enjoy a super low monthly payment. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line, you can close in 7 to 10 days, and a $50,000 loan would only cost you around $400 a month. Use that money to pay off high-interest credit cards or do a home improvement. You can access up to 90% of your home's equity, and 9 out of 10 homeowners won't even need an appraisal. Even if you did a total refi recently or just bought your home, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program. Stop the madness and say no to 24% interest fees. Call Loan Pronto today. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
If you're hiring, it can feel like you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. You can hope the right person comes along, or you can just use ZipRecruiter. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. In fact, ZipRecruiter has helped a lot of business owners find their needle in a haystack, like Marco, president of operations at Telly Tires and Auto Centers. Because Telly Tires has grown a lot in the last few years, Marco needed to hire everyone from a receptionist to a store manager to a head mechanic.
ZipRecruiter helps me find all the right people, even the most difficult jobs to fill. ZipRecruiter helps me keep my business running.
Take it from Marco and millions of other businesses who've used ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter can help you find the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/RADIO. ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
This week's Nashville's best deal is Bite a Bit Thai and Sushi in the heart of East Nashville. Get half off a $30 gift card while supplies last at thegamenashville.com/deals. Featuring all the best Thai food, sushi, and cocktails, plus an amazing bar and environment. You can eat a bit and bite a bit with this week's half-off deal. Check out biteabitnashville.com. That's Bite a Bit in East Nashville. Half off at thegamenashville.com/deals.
We try to stay cool by being on social media.
I'm with it. I'm hip.
Follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game and on Instagram at 1025 The Game Nashville.
Hey!
Oh, yeah, and like us on Facebook, too. You're listening to Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
How do you feel about the S2 cognition test as a quarterback position is concerned?
So this is my first experience with the S2, so I'm still learning it, myself. So there's still a space for me to grow. I know we use it, and we're, working through it. We met with them last week, so I can get a better understanding of how to use it, as a part of our analytical component, to evaluate a player. But myself, I'm still learning. It's my first experience with it, so I've only, really been diving into it over the last month or so.
Okay, that's Rand Carthon. Now, I'm not sure I completely believe that either. Not that I think he's lying about this is my first time using S2 or anything like that. But the idea that they showed up a week ago and he's going to go into the draft on Thursday and not have a full grasp of how much money they're paying for those, that he's not going to have a full grasp of what that all means, I'm not sure I completely believe. Or at least not have an assumption of what those numbers mean. I use that executive in the Bob McGinn story, and I think this is really important, right? So it's like, I'm not, by any stretch of the imagination, any kind of neuroscientist, nor do I ever pretend to be. I think we can all agree with that. But at the same time, if you tell me, hey, here are all the scores of all the quarterbacks, and anybody who scored an 18, here's who they are, and here's how their careers have gone. And I looked at that, and again, the executive told Bob McGinn that they're all bad. If that's true, then I can't draft C.J. Stroud. Now, here's the thing about a lot of the conjecture that is coming from this report that may or may not be true. Again, the S2 people say that lacks context. The Titans do know the truth. The Texans don't know the truth because the Texans don't pay for the S2 scores. But the Titans do know the truth because they pay for it, and they have it. Now, Indianapolis also pays for it, and they have it, so they know the truth too. So while I'm sitting here and saying, hey, if this is true, and it feels like it is true, if it's true, you cannot take him in the first round. You cannot use this pick, this premium pick, when the statistics are telling you that this guy may not be any good. You can't do that. When I hear people say things like, well, this is just go watch the tape. When I hear that, I think to myself, well, hold on. What you're doing is you're trying to take something that is completely objective, which is this S2 test. You're trying to take that and you're trying to overrule it with something subjective because that may tell you what you want to hear. And I don't believe in that. I don't want any stones unturned. And if I end up missing out on C.J. Stroud, if I end up not drafting him because of the S2 score, and he happens to be the one guy that can have a low S2 score and still become an elite franchise quarterback, well, then I screwed up and I missed on that. But right now, over 7 years, that one executive says there's no way around it. If you have a bad score, he said it in the Bob McGinn article, quote, it's 100%. Now, it doesn't mean that if you have a good score, you'll be a good quarterback. But if you have a bad score, you will be a bad quarterback. I keep wanting to know if Mariota were to take this, what it would have said about him. Because Mariota had the size. Mariota had the athleticism. Mariota did have the arm. I know he had the injuries and things like that, but Mariota could throw. Mariota had the college experience. He had the stats. He was a hard worker. He was a good teammate. Why did Mariota not make it? Why against Arizona did Mariota throw the ball right over the middle to a linebacker who was standing right there and he didn't see? Why, when Ryan Tannehill came into the lineup, immediately Tannehill started making checks at the line of scrimmage that Mariota wasn't? Why is that? How did Mariota go? In fact, I have the numbers right here in front of me. How did Mariota go from a 67% passer in college to a 63% passer with the Titans? How did Mariota go from 105 and 14 touchdowns to interceptions to 76 and 44 with the Titans? How'd that happen? How'd he go from 9.3 yards per attempt in college to 7.5? And I wonder if that's what the S2 score figures out. And so if that's the case, I can't take him. But guess what? I don't have to make that decision, because the Titans have the numbers. The Titans know what's real and what's not. Texter says, how do you think Brett Favre would have done on the S2? I have no idea. I mean, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how to decide that. How would he have done on a test that I'm not exactly sure exactly how it's administered? Now, I'll say this. Somebody told me that the Saints have S2 and that Drew Brees took it and did incredibly well. And it's processing, anticipation, all of those things, impulse control. I think Drew Brees would do pretty well in that. Just like I would assume that Vince Young probably wouldn't. But I can't tell you what I think Brett Favre would have done. Texter into the text line goes, if scores are going to be leaked, why do the prospects even agree to take it? I'm sure they have no idea how they'll do before taking it, so why risk it? I don't know. Here's the thing that's crazy about the S2 score. Everything about this S2 will be either legitimized or delegitimized by C.J. Stroud's play. If C.J. Stroud goes into the NFL and is a bust, S2 will become the holy grail. If C.J. Stroud goes into the NFL and he wins Rookie of the Year, and he turns into Patrick Mahomes, then nobody will ever care what somebody's S2 score is ever again. And I think that is completely and totally unfair. I think it is a complete and total mischaracterization of what the S2 people even claim that this test is about. And I'm just telling you that if C.J. Stroud, with all the hubbub that has been made over this S2 score, if C.J. Stroud is a star, we'll never hear. People will wipe their rear ends with the S2 score. If C.J. Stroud is a bust, everybody will say, well, I know that guy was in college for 3 years, and he won 3 Heisman trophies, and he has 863 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, but we can't take him because he scored in the 45th percentile on the S2. I mean, they say that what happens is these guys sit down with a laptop that's like a video game laptop that can count into the milliseconds or whatever. I mean, are we going to watch that instead of guys run the 40? Like, are we going to watch guys just sit down with a laptop and play some kind of video game? And it's like, 29th percentile. Sorry, Bobby, but you need to go ahead and sit down with your father and see if he can get you a job at the law firm, because quarterback's not going to work out for you. But I'm telling you, that's where, I mean, this has become such a big deal, this cognition test. I also don't believe that Ran Carthon, I do not believe that Ran Carthon is, well, I just got here. I don't really know what this thing's about. I am not buying that. But I thought it was a great job of Ran Carthon not having to address how much he buys into it, how much he weighs it, how important it is. I think that he did a masterful job of just saying, yeah, I just got here, I don't know. Now, if it is I just got here, I don't know, then, dude, your organization is spending a lot of money for you guys to know that. A lot of people have asked what Malik's S2 score was. The Titans apparently were not I guess at that point in time, the Titans were not a client of S2. And apparently there's a lot of people around the league. Somebody's telling us there's a lot of people around the league that are mad about these leaked scores, because there's a feeling that, dude, these NFL teams pay all this money for this, and all of a sudden it just leaks out into the public. And so I understand why the S2 people would be very protective of that. But the Titans would know. 615-737-1025. I see all of your texts lined up. 615-737-1025. I am not going to accuse the Titans of something, but I am also not going to let them off the hook. I've got another conspiracy theory, I think, Ian.
Fun.
We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5-106.3 The Game, 615-737-1025. Join us for the second annual Music City Celebrity Golf Tournament presented by Gary Force Acura, benefiting Souls for Souls on June 7th at Hermitage Golf Course. Put your team together and come play with athletes, musicians, and other local celebrities to support a great cause and have loads of fun. Plus, you'll have the chance to win awesome prizes. Sign up to play, sponsor, or donate at thegamenashville.com/golf.
When it comes to NFL draft prep, there's no one better than TD. ESPN's Teron Davenport talks to the prospects.
There's 3 deals going at once, and whichever deal goes first sets the floor for the next one.
And brings you the best info on the Titans draft.
If Paris Johnson is the top player there, I think they would take him.
Teron Davenport, Mondays at 1, Thursdays at 3, and Friday mornings at 8. TD on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
The Nashville Sounds are at First Horizon Park all week. Tonight through Sunday, the Sounds take on the Omaha Storm Chasers. And tonight, you can bring your dog to the game. Gates open at 5:30, and first pitch is set for 6:35. Grab tickets today at NashvilleSounds.com.
Harmon Energy is your one-stop petroleum solution across all of Tennessee, offering turnkey petroleum solutions for professionals in major industries, serving trucking fleets, construction companies, industrial plants, and more. Whether a large corporation or owner-operator, Harmon Energy has your diesel fuel, lubricant, DEF, and equipment needs. No matter how you're getting there, start with Parman. Visit ParmanEnergy.com for more info. Your Tennessee petroleum solution, providing totally outrageous customer service.
33 hours of savings this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Electronic Express. These deals are so hot they only last 33 hours. Get a Hisense 65-inch 4K TV for just $349, or a JBL Bluetooth speaker for just $59. Save up to 50% on 4K TVs, computers, housewares, appliances, and more. Don't miss out on a Go Wise air fryer for just $79, or an Amana laundry pair for just $449 each. Now through Saturday. Shop online or at all Electronic Express locations.
Is your mower's battery weak or dead after winter storage? Get your mower ready for spring lawn maintenance at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Right now, purchase any Superstart lawn and garden battery and get a $10 gift card after rebate. Choose Superstart batteries for power, performance, and reliability exclusively at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. Nashville Sounds Baseball lives on 94.9 The Fan. Catch every pitch.
Swing and a miss, strike three.
Every hit.
That's a base hit.
Every run.
Looking up, it's gone.
On your home for Sounds Baseball. 94.9 The Fan and The Fan app.
Hey, it's ESPN NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck on Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Our database right now is 3,600 NFL prospects. And so it would be that 3% of college athletes that have declared for the draft and have gone through that process. And so when you get a percentile rank, it is compared to those players. So, I think in the context of, hey, this is a low number, of 50 is an average NFL prospect. That guy is getting drafted. He's going to be on a roster. So, low numbers are, again, it's just all contextual. It doesn't mean a player can't play.
Yeah.
It just means that he's going to have more areas that he's going to struggle with than others.
There you go. That was Brandon Ally of S2 talking about, hey, if you score a 50, it just means you're average. 50 is not bad. Well, what's 18? Now, they say it's out of context. Or one of the leaked reports they saw numbers was out of context. So I do know this. I know the S2 people are freaking pissed about the Bob McGinn article with the leaked scores. And that people around the league are the 15 teams that pay for it are freaking pissed about the S2 scores getting leaked. And so they brought up in that cut we first played yesterday on the Pat McAfee show that the 18 with C.J. Stroud that was out of context. And again, I am alluding to what they said, not saying specifically they said C.J. Stroud because I don't want to get sued. But it's pretty obvious to me that they said it was C.J. It's pretty obvious to me that they were alluding to C.J. Stroud. That in that it could be for narrative purposes, which means that there's a team that has the S2 scores and they leaked it to Bob McGinn to trash C.J. Stroud, so that a team that doesn't have the S2 scores would then have to go off of those S2 scores, and they would say, well, we don't have the scores. We don't pay the money for the scores. We can't get the scores, but yeah, it's bad. And so now we can't draft the guy off of something we don't know. So somebody leaked it. And I'm not going to accuse anybody of anything here today, Ian.
Okay.
But I was thinking in my head, who could have leaked it? Who would have leaked it? Why would they have leaked it?
Mm-hmm. All fair questions.
And I'm thinking, okay, Bob McGinn, he's been covering the Packers for a jillion years. He's the guy that came out at GoLongTD.com. He's the guy that came out and said, oh, yeah, Murphy, Gutekunst, LaFleur, they're all done with Aaron Rodgers. Before we knew that Green Bay was done with Aaron Rodgers. So this is not his first rodeo, but he's a Packers guy. So let's keep that in mind. Packers, right? Okay. I spent this morning, not all morning, but probably a solid 20 minutes, trying to search on the internet who are the 15 teams that are aligned with S2. And I've only come up with 3. The Colts, the Titans, and the Cowboys. Now, I don't know if Seattle has access to S2. I don't know, but I was going through each of these teams, right? And only half the teams in the league have the access to S2. And apparently, getting your hands on the S2 scores is literally like a CIA operation if you don't have the numbers. And I thought, okay, well, obviously Mike McCarthy has a connection to Green Bay because Mike McCarthy was the coach there for a while. But I don't think Mike McCarthy has a dog in the fight when it comes to the quarterbacks in this year's class. Literally every team that he competes with, except for Washington, has a quarterback, and he's got a quarterback, and he's not going to be in position to pick a quarterback. So I don't think McCarthy and the Cowboys would have any reason to leak that. I don't know if John Schneider in Seattle, who did work in Green Bay, I don't know if they're a client or not. If Seattle is a client of S2, that could be a little juicy. The Colts, I looked up and down their squad. They don't have anybody with ties to the Packers. Again, it's not like they gave these scores to Adam Schefter or gave them to Ian Rappaport or gave them to like a centralized guy. Like, this is a guy in Green Bay. Like, this is like, and again, and I know TD has sources all throughout the league, but this is like if TD did something, it's like, well, probably, it's something Titans related because this is where TD is. The Lions don't have Packer ties at 6. The Raiders don't have Packer ties at 7. Who's the Titans' number 2? Rand Carthon's number 1. On the personnel side, Ian, do you know who the number 2 guy for the Titans is right now in their front office?
He brought up Chad Brinker a lot in his presser.
Okay, where did Chad Brinker come from?
Green Bay.
Chad Brinker was there for 15 years. I'm not saying the Titans are the ones who leaked it to McGinn, but they have the S2 scores. McGinn's a Green Bay guy. And Brinker just came from Green Bay. We know the Titans need some luck on Thursday night in order to get into striking distance for a quarterback. I've already brought up the fact of all the ties between Vrabel and Ohio State and Stroud and Tim Kelly and Ryan Day and all these different kind of, conspiracy wagons about how the Titans could have worked with Stroud in order to get. What about the guy from Green Bay? Again, I don't think the Packers have a dog in this fight, so I think we can rule them out. Seattle would be the one team that I would be interested in because John Schneider does have Green Bay ties, their GM. And I could see them saying, hey, if we leak this out there that C.J. Stroud scored poorly, even though it's out of context, even though it's not exactly the truth, if we leak this out there, that may scare the Texans from drafting him at number 2, and then we can get him at number 5, or we can move from 5 to 3, and we can get him, and we can stick him on the bench behind Geno, and we think that C.J. Stroud is going to be the best. That could or could not be what happened. Could be Seattle. It's hard for me to find a team who's got more to gain in this than the Titans, and they've got a direct tie to Green Bay. So again, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just throwing it out there that I'm not convinced that the Titans aren't the ones who leaked this to Bob McGinn. Texter into the text line says the S2 guys are lying about Stroud's out-of-context score because they'll all get sued. Will they? Will they get sued if it comes out that somebody that they do business with leaked the S2 score to Bob McGinn, and all of a sudden everybody got that information? Now, I can see the teams being very upset about how this is proprietary information that we're supposed to have, and I don't know why you would let that out there, but clearly it was a team or, somebody brought up the idea to me that it could be like a low-level scout with one of these teams. They got a hold of the S2 scores and gave it to McGinn, but I'm like, if it's this important, if it's this proprietary, if these numbers are that secretive, would you ever let a lower level scout see something like that? I mean, I'll tell you right now, if Floyd Reese were the general manager of the Titans, you know how many people would have seen his board right now? 1. That's how secretive it was. So I don't know if I can say, well, this would be a situation where that low-level scout, found it on the copier. Weston Hermitage says, just curious, if C.J. Stroud's score was wrong and reported to all of the NFL and it affects him in the draft since it's confidential info, could he sue somebody for leaking the info? Or whoever held that info, could they sue somebody over this? I mean, I think you can sue over anonymous sourcing all the time. I just don't think you're going to get anything out of it. I mean, Bob McGinn's not going to give up his sources. And that's like the number one thing. And Bob McGinn is an old school journalist. That's why, when people say, well, that score is not accurate of an 18, all I can tell you that I know for sure in this is Bob McGinn's not making that up. And I don't know Bob McGinn, but I know his reputation. And his reputation is he's not making that up. That's why when they kept bringing up the out-of-context nature of the score, what it tells me is that there may have been a situation where C.J. Stroud, didn't finish the test, or C.J. Stroud, didn't, do everything required of him because, again, like they said, he was tired and he was hungry and all of those other things, reasons that he apparently did poorly on this, but that it was registered on the stationery as an 18. And that somebody looking to lower Stroud's draft stock went to Bob McGinn and showed him the stationery and said, see, 18. And that Bob McGinn wrote it because all a reporter can report is what you tell him to report. Reporters' jobs are not to make the news. It is to discover the news. And so, I mean, I don't think that you could sue somebody over that because you don't know who it is who leaked it. And Bob McGinn is not going to tell you. Texter says, will the S2 become the new Wonderlic where the NFL becomes the client and all teams help pay for and have access to the scores of top prospects? That's above my pay grade, Joel. I have no idea. But let me say this. If C.J. Stroud is a bust, S2 is going to be the hottest discussion. I mean, we'll be sitting here saying, yeah, he's 6'4", 245 pounds. He's 13% body fat. He threw for 3,800 yards in a college season. He threw for 47 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He led his team to the national championship game. He played with a broken elbow in the championship game. What do you get on the S2? That's all I care about. Brock Purdy didn't have those college stats, but he scored highly on that S2. I mean, so. Texter says, Jared, I'm confused. Did C.J. Stroud score an 18 or not? And if he didn't score an 18, what does it mean in terms of out of context? If he scored an 18, why would the Titans want to take a chance on a guy that did not do well in this test? I'm confused with the whole situation. Good question, Robert. So let's just catch everybody up on this. So it was reported that C.J. Stroud scored an 18 in the 18th percentile, which is very, very bad on a cognitive processing test that apparently holds a lot of weight with a lot of people that understand this test inside the NFL. He reportedly scored an 18. One of the co-founders of the test, Brandon Ally, based out of Brentwood, he went on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. Ian, if you can get that cut, and without saying that it was C.J. Stroud, because apparently he can't say it was C.J. Stroud, but it sounds to me like he was alluding to C.J. Stroud, says that result was out of context. Here's what he said.
The day that happened, that those leaks happened, my phone was blowing up from general managers and our attorney. And so we can't speak on specifics. What I will say is the list of scores that I have seen, 2 of those scores are not accurate. They're not accurate at all. And some of the reason could be for narrative purposes. The other reason is that they don't have context. So somebody could have gotten a list of very early scores. One of the athletes on that particular list I know had a difficult time making his way to the All-Star game. Things were delayed. He was in high demand. He was hungry, tired. It was 11 p.m., didn't want to do it. He was frustrated. We administered the test because we're asked to. We knew at that point in time, hey, we'll get you again. We'll get you at your pro day, your 30 visit. We did that, and his score is significantly higher than what is being reported in the media.
Okay.
So I'm just saying that I'm not saying that it was C.J. Stroud.
Okay. Yeah, you're not saying. Got
just that for context purposes, the scores that were leaked, there are a couple of them that are inaccurate, and there needs to be context behind that.
Okay. So that's what they're saying. basically, again, I think they're talking about Stroud. And in it, they're saying, hey, we took it again, and it was much better. That's what they're saying. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in on this. So Hendon Hooker, I think there is this kind of secret debate as far as Hendon Hooker is concerned. But there is something that I think is bothering a lot of NFL evaluators when it comes to evaluating Hendon. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in today on the program. And be sure to join us again for our draft coverage on Thursday. We'll be at Twin Peaks out in Cool Springs. It'll be me, Derek, and Chris. And on Friday, Caroline, Derek, and Chris will have rounds 2 and 3 of the draft live at the Inglewood Wingstop at 3300 Gallatin Pike, where Flavor gets its wings. The first 100 people to stop by during the draft will receive a coupon for a free 5 boneless wings for their next visit.
We are your home for every big pass.
Kevin Harvick takes over the race lead.
Big wreck.
Trouble turn 2. One car is around and hard into the outside wall.
And big win.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has won the Daytona 500.
Yeah! Woo!
Catch every lap of NASCAR on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hey, it's Mike from Newton Nissan South. Are you tired of April showers ruining your mood and turning your car into a muddy mess? Well, Newton Nissan South has a solution for you. I want to introduce the brand new Newton Rainproof car. Yes, you heard it right. Our cars are specifically designed to keep you dry during those pesky April showers. Our patented rain-proof technology includes a roof that doubles as an umbrella, a windshield that repels water like a superhero, and tires that have built-in rain boots. With the Newton Rainproof car, you'll never have to worry about getting wet again. Say goodbye to ruined hair and soggy socks. And the best part? If you buy a Newton Rainproof car during the month of April, you'll get a free set of windshield wipers that sing in the rain. You can stay dry and shop our full selection of rainproof cars on NewtonNissanSouth.com and buy a car from the comfort of your dry home with Newton FastPass. It's the fast, easy, and dry way to buy your car online. So come on down to Newton Nissan South and make a splash with our rainproof cars. Hurry! The offer ends when the rain stops pouring, which could be never.
The Beach Boys. Live in concert. May 25th, 26th, and 27th at Schermerhorn Symphony Center. Performing with the Nashville Symphony. The Beach Boys return to the stage. Tickets on sale now at NashvilleSymphony.org. Don't miss the Beach Boys live with the Nashville Symphony.
Finding great people to hire is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. It's pretty difficult, right? Well, ZipRecruiter has mastered finding a needle in a haystack, so they take it to the next level. They make hiring so simple that it's like finding a needle in a needle stack. And that's why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. Here's what it's like to use ZipRecruiter. They have so many qualified candidates that it's easier to find the right ones for your roles. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's a lot of needles. So how do they do it? ZipRecruiter's powerful technology sends you candidates who are a great match for your job, and you can even invite your top choices to apply. So if you want less hay and more needles, head to ZipRecruiter.
And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/FREE. ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
The sports talk doesn't end on Friday. Join Michelle Knezovic and Junie Riddle for Michelle and Junie.
As long as he wants to coach there, he will be able to coach there.
I think that really did save the hope of this team.
Michelle and Junie, presented by Superbook Sports, every Saturday morning at 9 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Strong opinions and a strong personality on your drive home. This is Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
I'm very certain that these NFL teams, when they're calling to talk about Hendon, they really want you to talk about, okay, with the style of offense you run, as fast as you run things and how you do things, please tell us what his responsibilities are. And I think for a lot of teams, it might be surprising to find out just how much responsibility he has for your offense.
Yeah, the spacing of what we do is a little bit different, but conceptually, so many concepts to carry over. But the pressure that's applied on him with having to recognize what's going on before the snap and then obviously post-snap recognition as well, he controls everything within our tempo. He does an unbelievable job of processing the information extremely quickly. Run checks, run pass checks, loaded box checks, alerts and kills. He controls it all for us, and he's got an unbelievable understanding of protections, schemes, how to redirect protections. He's been able to go through that. There's a little bit of a misnomer because of our tempo that he doesn't have all that on his plate. He does, and that's been a huge part of why he's continued to climb, during the draft process, because he's able to relay all that information to executives, and they have a great understanding of his football knowledge. And without that, he wouldn't play at the level that he did for us this past season.
Josh Heupel last night on NFL radio, and it kind of sounded like he and Charles Davis were in cahoots a little bit there, right? Like, Charles is of all. I'm sure, Coach, NFL teams want to know how much Hendon Hooker does because your offense is an elementary, gimmicky college offense. And so please tell us all that Hendon Hooker does so people will stop claiming that that's a gimmicky college offense. And then Josh Heupel just listed off a bunch of things that made you think, that's a lot of stuff for Hendon Hooker to do. Now, I got to tell you, a lot of people, and I used to be one of them, think that Hendon Hooker is a safe pick because he's older. We know what his ceiling is. We think that he's close to it. He took care of the ball in college. He elevated that UT franchise. No doubt about that. And that does mean something to me. When you take a dormant program and you elevate them, that does matter. But Tom Pelissero does a report where he talks to scouts and he talks to coaches and he talks to people in the league about these quarterbacks. And he says, I do not watch tape on these guys at all. I don't want it to cloud my judgment. What I say is just what I've heard. He's just regurgitating what he's heard from other people. And this is what he said about Hendon Hooker. And I think this is how the league feels about Hendon Hooker with what they like and what they're concerned about.
Hendon Hooker will be right on that border. Does somebody go up and get him with the fifth-year option, knowing that he's basically going to be a redshirt this year, coming off the ACL? People really like the guy through the course of the process. He just comes from this wacky offense at Tennessee where they line up all the receivers outside the numbers, and there's not really a lot of reads. There's not a lot of, they use hand signals to kind of signal what routes they are. The receivers are reading things more than the quarterback, and Hooker told teams, that allowed him to play free.
Hey, this fact that we had this kind of gimmicky offense actually let me play a little free. I liked it. Well, that's great, but you're not going to be able to do that in the NFL. Bruce Feldman talked to two quarterbacks coaches, and he asked, is Hendon Hooker a real guy? And you know what they mean? Like, is he like a guy or is he, he's a guy. Is he a guy? Quarterback coach one, quote, the offense gives you a concern. I think Hooker is very talented. I have some questions. Is he a real guy? I really do like his talent. I do think he's going to have a big learning curve because of the way that the Tennessee offense, plays. I present him as a 3-year project. So now we're talking about 26, 27, 28. I'd present him as a 3-year project. The first year he needs to learn. I think he needs a year. Then he can compete to be a number 2. And then in year 3, you've got the guy. So you guys don't want to wait at all on Anthony Richardson. But this guy's saying that Tennessee offense is so elementary that you're going to have to take a lot of time for Hendon Hooker. Quarterback coach 2 said to Bruce Feldman in The Athletic, quote, the good thing about him, and it sucks to say, but when he got hurt, it could be the best thing that happened for his career. It means he will redshirt and sit back and walk through the year. And if a team has a good plan in place for him, it could be a pretty special thing. There's going to be an adjustment period for him. That offense, again, talking about Josh Heupel's offense, that offense is cut right down the middle, and that half of the field, he does see it well. Guys, everything that you think about Anthony Richardson, that's what their concerns with Hendon Hooker are. That Hendon Hooker stands back there in the shotgun, and because of the Tennessee offense, he looks over to the board, and it's okay, banana split, And we've got everybody all the way out there. And this is why I think Jalen Hyatt's going in round 2. Because it's just, hey, let's get our fastest guy on their slowest guy and run them deep. And you cannot do that in the NFL. You cannot put all your receivers outside the numbers in the NFL. You cannot run that offense. So for everybody out there that thinks that Hendon Hooker is a safe bet because he's older, or thinks that he's a safe bet because he didn't turn the football over, these coaches are saying the offense with which Hendon Hooker ran gives them a lot of concern. It worries them to his bust potential. And let me say this. We are talking about the S2 cognition test, in which reportedly Bryce Young scored a 98. Reportedly, Will Levis scored a 93, and this is the percentile. So Bryce Young, 98th percentile. Will Levis, 93rd percentile. Anthony Richardson, 79th percentile, which a coach in the NFL said 80 is good. So Richardson's right there on the border of good. C.J. Stroud, 18. That got all the headlines. But Hendon Hooker was, I think, 46. So that means that Hendon Hooker was not even average when it came to where he ranks in terms of processing with the rest of these quarterbacks that have come out over the last 7 years. And what that means to me is that he needs to be in one of these offenses where they tell you what to do ahead of time, which is exactly what Tennessee's offense was, which is exactly why Josh Heupel and Charles Davis were sitting there trying to highlight, no, we promise it's not as simple as Hendon looks out there and says, you on you, I'm throwing it deep. I promise it's more complicated than that, because it's going to be way more complicated when he gets into the NFL. But if you didn't play in a pro-style offense and you've got all these gimmicks and you're already 25 years old and you're coming off of a torn ACL and you're not an average processor, that is concerning. So we all think Hendon Hooker's a safe pick. And I'll say this, I believe in the kid. And I believe in the fact that he did raise that Tennessee program from the ashes of mediocrity. But at the same time, I'm worried he may be a bust. Like all that stuff, it's starting to pile up when it comes to Hendon Hooker. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. Herb from the Q in Texan says Tennessee hater. Now, I mean, we say something good about Hooker, and it's Tennessee homer. We say something bad about Hooker, and it's Tennessee hater. Wes in Clarksville goes, if the offense was so easy, why could hardly no one figure it out? Because in college, they don't have NFL defensive backs that can lock onto a receiver man for man. Jordan Rodgers told me, I asked him, I said, why would Josh Heupel's offense not work in the NFL? And he said, because you can't run the wide splits in the NFL. Because everybody can play man-to-man in the NFL. Nobody can play man-to-man like that in college. That's why I look at Brian Branch, right? You know, the Jalen Hyatt Alabama game. What do you have, 6 catches for 5 touchdowns? And they were all just him running right past Brian Branch for a touchdown every time. Well, that's because they just split all the receivers out there. And Brian Branch, who's a safety and runs like a 4.6, is out there with Hyatt, who runs a 4.3, and Hyatt just ran by him every time. Well, when he gets out in the NFL, you're not going to be able to do that. That's why. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025 here on the program. Stillman and Company coming up next. There need to be 2 divisions when it comes to talking about the Titans and what they're going to do on Thursday night. And we'll get to that next. Stillman and Company right here, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Every day we are live and local.
Most people pick them to make the playoffs before the season even started.
And your source for Nashville sports.
He can still wait for 5 more games before he makes that decision.
We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Mom, we're out of potato chips.
Teenagers, they'll eat you out of house and home, kind of like health insurance, which can take a big bite out of the family budget. Fortunately, with Farm Bureau Health Plan's Core Choice coverage, we can save $3,600 a year compared to the leading competitor. And we've got better coverage with a lower premium, lower deductible, free telehealth visits, and access to one of the largest networks available.
Can we order pizza?
Visit FBHP.com or your local Farm Bureau office today.
More than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio for their news, traffic, weather, sports, and a community connection. It's the backbone of the emergency alert system, keeping us safe in dangerous times. It's critical that we keep AM radio in cars, because when cell and internet services are down, this free emergency service could be your only lifeline. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially since you're always growing and changing. Therapy is all about deepening that self-awareness, because sometimes you don't know what you really want until you talk things through. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist online who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. Visit betterhelp.com/score to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/score.
Now, your Game Center update.
Brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. The NFL draft rumors and reports are flying high, with the first round starting on Thursday night. The latest involves quarterback Will Levis, as he is now the betting favorite to be the second overall pick. The Memphis Grizzlies fell to the Lakers in overtime last night as LA took a 3-1 series lead. The Seattle Kraken evened up their series at 2-2 versus the defending champs Colorado last night in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Avs D-man Kel McCarr has been suspended for one game following an interference penalty. There are 3 more Cup playoff games on schedule for tonight. Nashville SC made a trade today, sending attacker CJ Sapong to Toronto FC in exchange for defender Lucas McNaughton and some general allocation money. And the Nashville Sounds return to First Horizon Park this week as they begin a 6-game homestand versus Omaha. Coverage begins at 6:20 with first pitch at 6:35 on your home of the Sounds, 94.9 The Fan. This update is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. I'm Ian Safar for 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit the Game Net HD2 Laverne.
Bobby and Rex Road. Chase and Michelle.
Caroline, Willie, D-Base.
Stillman and Company.
Nashville's best sports talk.
Crank it up.
1025 and 1063.
Cranks it, he scores. On both sides of the ball. One big possession. Touchdown, Middle Tennessee.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Where you have a voice.
He had a competent coaching staff. You just play terrible and you keep playing.
And we have strong opinions.
What a whiny freaking crybaby response.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk, 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, 1025, 1063 The Game. Streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to Superbook Sports. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. Here on the program, Trevor Maddich, his final draft preview with us on the program in less than 30 minutes. So, you know when you work in a company, especially a big company, and there's all these different parts of the company? There's the finance division, there's the legal division, there's the sales division, and they always tell you we're all a team, but you know that the legal division really doesn't deal much with the sales division. You know that. Now, when they have their big leadership meetings with the CEO, then you'll have the head of sales and the head of legal will be there. When it comes to the Titans and what they're going to do on Thursday night, I get asked all the time, do you think they're going to take a quarterback? And I'm like, I don't know. And you want to know who else doesn't know? They don't know. Now, they have a much better feeling about it than I do because they're the ones that are going to do it. But they don't know what everybody else is thinking. They don't know what the people behind them are thinking. They don't know what the people in front of them are thinking. They're going to try to get a gauge on that. They have an idea of what they're thinking, but they don't know. And so when it comes to what the Titans are going to do Thursday night, I think we have to separate this into two separate yet equally important groups. One, the quarterback division to the non-quarterback division. And I think the discussions about both of those are very, very different. Let's talk quarterback division. There are 4 guys. Hendon Hooker is, in my opinion, an outlier. Hendon Hooker is, we couldn't get one of the 4 guys, but we didn't come away empty-handed. But there are 4 guys, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis, in whatever order you want to put them. And my order is a different order, I would assume, than a lot of your orders. And probably in a different order than their order. I think they like Will Levis the best. And I don't know how they feel about Bryce Young. I think they just kind of feel like Bryce Young's out of their price range. And I would agree that when we get to the meeting of the quarterback division, we're not even going to waste time talking about Bryce Young because it's not going to happen. Even though a guy on Reddit said that Will Levis is going number 1, and that shocked the betting markets, which is ridiculous. But there's 3 guys there to discuss. Where do you have to go in order to do that? What team do you need to trade with? What would you have to offer? How would you have all of that? That's part of it. Then there's the non-quarterback division. Which players are going to be picked that you're not going to have a chance at? I'm not a Will Anderson guy. I know everybody on TV is. I am not a Will Anderson guy. But you don't have a shot of getting Will Anderson. But then there's Jalen Carter. And he's a really good player, but he's got his red flags. There's Jackson Smith and Jigba, who is the only wide receiver I think that is worth taking within the top 11. And he's got a massive injury that he's coming off of last year. And this is an organization and a team that spent too much time the last couple of years being injured. They were too reliant on injured players. That's a discussion for the non-quarterback department. Then there's the idea, one of the corners, are they going to fall to you, Gonzalez or Witherspoon? Is it worth taking a corner with the 11th overall pick? Do you trade down if you're the Titans at 11 in order to try to add? Here's the funny thing about it, too. I think the Titans are walking into this draft with a plan A and a plan B and a plan C and everything else. If they go quarterback, I think they're going to have to trade up in order to get a quarterback. So we can talk about what's going to be available in the second round and the third round and all of that. We can do that. But if you're going to go quarterback, you can kiss the second round goodbye because you're going to need that 41st pick in whatever trade it is that you make in order to get your quarterback. But if they're going to go non-quarterback, I think there's a chance then that we have to start talking about the depth of the draft. Because on one hand, Peter Skoronski, for instance, at Northwestern, he may be available with the 11th overall pick. Or Bijan Robinson, the running back at Texas, he may be available with the 11th overall pick. But here's the thing, is one left guard in Peter Skoronski, even if he is a Pro Bowl left guard for 10 years, is he as valuable to you as moving back, drafting Zay Flowers later in the first round, and then getting your guard in the second round or the third round or the first round pick that you may acquire from moving back in this year's draft and what that could give you next year. So they're two very different drafts. If they go quarterback, now everything that your organization does from here on out is based upon that decision that you just made. Your salary cap, which you know that I think the cap's fake, but the money's not. Your salary decisions, contract extensions. Let's say you trade up and you draft C.J. Stroud, and Ryan Tannehill is going to be the quarterback this year, and C.J. Stroud is going to ride the pine, and then next year you're going to turn it over to C.J. Well, now we all have to sit there and talk about, should you extend Derrick Henry? Because you'll want to give CJ some help. And yes, Derek will be older, but Derek can still tote the rock. And if we extend him, it gives us some comfort that there will at least be something in the cupboard for CJ next year, because we may not have a first round pick if we're moving up in next year's draft to go get C.J. Stroud this year. So it changes everything. And if you go non-quarterback, then you're going to fill a lot of your holes. Left guard is a hole, wide receiver is a hole, tight end 2 is a hole, future running back is a hole. You can always use more depth on defense, especially in the secondary. I mean, you're going to be able to fill those. Because if you move back off of 11, you're probably going to pick up some picks this year and maybe some picks next year. So it's almost like when everybody asks, what are they going to do? I just say, well, I mean, hold on. Are we talking the football division, or are we talking are we talking the quarterback division, or are we talking the non-quarterback division? Because if you're talking about what they're going to do non-quarterback, then you need to walk into room 206. That's where they're discussing that. Now, if you're discussing the plan for quarterback, that's, room 107. So which room are you going into? And the thing about this draft is, let's say they like one guy. Let's say they like Levis, which is who I think they like. And all of a sudden, Houston takes him at number 2. Well, now, scrap that plan. Guys in room 107 at the quarterback division, guys, it was great spending time with you. I'm glad we put all this work in. Everybody get home safe. If you need anything, let me know. I'll see you. And then you got to go sprint to the non-quarterback room. And that's what they're doing right now. But they're 2 separate plans, and they take the team on 2 separate paths. It's almost like the movie The Matrix with the red pill and the blue pill. And normally I hate when people on the radio start talking about movie references, because anytime somebody says, well, it's like that movie, you seen that movie? The answer is no, I haven't seen the movie. Don't make the reference. But I think you guys understand what I mean. It's a choose your own adventure book. It's a fork in the road. It's the quarterback division or the non-quarterback division. And there are so many tentacles that have ramifications off of which road they choose to go from the fork. So I'm going to let you pick the next topic. We're going to do this like the state government does, where the guy who's in charge just kind of, everybody say aye, everybody say nay. We're going to use the text line at 615-737-1025. Do you want to explore the quarterback decision? Do you want to walk into the discussion that we're having right now in the quarterback room, or do you want to go into the non-quarterback room? 615-737-1025. What you guys text in will decide. Majority rules. Quarterback discussion, non-quarterback discussion. And I am actually fascinated to see which one you guys rather talk about more. 615-737-1025. We'll do that next, right here on the program, 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company. And you know what? Let's give something away while we're doing this with our phones. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you will win a pair of tickets to see Breaking Benjamin at First Bank Amphitheater on May 3rd. That's caller 5 at 615-737-1025. Good luck to you. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game has an all-star lineup Monday through Friday. Batting first at 6 a.m., it's Robbie and Rexroad.
Yeah, you take that. You take that. Take 80% of that.
Followed by Chase and Michelle at 9.
Couldn't hit the broadside of a barn.
I need my caffeine so much.
Then it's Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace at 11.
Yep, green light, let's go.
You've got a lot of options.
He say, she say. And bringing it home at 2, Jared Stillman for Stillman and Company.
That guy will be a good coach.
We are Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Breaking Benjamin. Live in concert in Franklin. With special guests, Bush. And Another Day Dawns. First Bank Amphitheater, May 3rd. Get tickets now at livenation.com. For more, visit breakingbenjamin.com. Get tickets now.
33 hours of savings this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Electronic Express. These deals are so hot they only last 33 hours. Get a Hisense 65-inch 4K TV for just $349, or a JBL Bluetooth speaker for just $59. Save up to 50% on 4K TVs, computers, housewares, appliances, and more. Don't miss out on a Go Wise air fryer for just $79, or an Amana laundry pair for just $449 each. Now through Saturday. Shop online or at all Electronic Express locations.
What if you could be credit card debt-free in 10 days and save as much as $1,000 a month? Loan Pronto's all-new Express Equity Line of Credit program is just what you need. Willie Donick here. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a small portion of the equity you have and enjoy a super low monthly payment. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line, you can close in 7 to 10 days, and a $50,000 loan would only cost you around $400 a month. Use that money to pay off high-interest credit cards or do a home improvement. You can access up to 90% of your home's equity, and 9 out of 10 homeowners won't even need an appraisal. Even if you did a total refi recently or just bought your home, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program. Stop the madness and say no to 24% interest fees. Call Loan Pronto today. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Hey, it's John Tesh. You want to know how to get better rates, better coverage, and better service on your home and auto insurance? Work with Zander Insurance. I know it's a big promise, but this team delivers. They've been around for almost 100 years and have earned the privilege of representing dozens of insurance companies so they can shop, compare, and find you the best options available. More options mean more savings, and in many cases, better coverage. But it doesn't stop there. Each year, they review your coverage to make sure your rates stay competitive. Nobody else does that. And when it comes to service, just check out their ratings. Zander is one of the top agencies in the industry, and they earned that spot with their commitment to making sure their clients are taken care of like family. That's what sets them apart. Go to Zander.com for quick online quotes or call 800-356-1780 for that personal touch that you've been missing.
Want to weigh in on the conversation? It's a brain booster. Slide into our DMs. Or just text or call at 615-737-1025. Our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You're listening to Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company, we gave you the opportunity. 2 separate divisions, the quarterback division, the non-quarterback division, and I was surprised by how many of you weighed in, and it was kind of close, but it wasn't overly close. Most people want to go into the non-quarterback room. So with that, let's restart the segment. I got to give you in a second here. I did put this on him very last second, and, we gave away tickets, so that may be a little bit difficult.
Hey, this is Ryan Johansson. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
I've got a bunch of texts today in terms of, am I excited yet? And usually I'm the one, if I know something big is coming up, I'm asking my wife, hey, are you excited? And she's like, don't talk to me about it until it's actually happening. And I think through osmosis, it's kind of rubbed off on me right now. So I'm just trying to really collect the final bit of information and then just shut my brain off, for the next, couple of days till we get on the clock, and so I'm not clouded and trying to hear these final rumors and being nosy. But I think once we get on the clock, I think there'll be some nerves, watching how this whole thing shakes out. And, but, at that point, it's just like a game. Once the ball's kicked off and you've got your first hit, then now it's time to go.
Okay, there you go. That's Ran Carthon talking about his first draft. And so let's say we're talking about non-quarterback for the Titans. And, forget about the quarterbacks, and they all go in the top 10, and you're sitting there at 11. I think the Titans' number one plan should be, and I also think it probably is, to trade back. And I'm going to explain why. So Ran Carthon was asked this yesterday about, if you trade back, do you feel comfortable about the first round grades that you would have in this draft? Here's what Ran Carthon said.
Have enough first round grades on your board that you can comfortably trade back half a dozen spots or so?
So you're trying to get me set up, We're comfortable with where our board is, don't want to tip too much, to the people above and below. But we're comfortable that wherever we're picking, we're going to get a player that we like.
Okay. So, again, I think that was a very generic answer, but I do think that's his way of saying if we do trade back, it's going to be a pick with a player that has a first-round grade. And so I took the trade chart right here. This is the Patriots trade chart, or at least it's one that they've used in the past. And I looked at what it would be to trade back. And here's why I think the Titans, if they go non-quarterback, probably would trade back. Because according to Scouts, Inc., there are 22 round one grades in this year's class. Now, 11 of those are going to go, 10 of those are going to go before you pick at 11, and then obviously 11 because you're trading back. So somebody else, at that point now you've cut it in half. Here's who I think is gone by the time that you would get on any kind of clock. I think Bryce Young is gone. I think Jalen Carter is gone. I think Tyree Wilson is gone. I think C.J. Stroud is gone. I think Christian Gonzalez is gone. I think Will Anderson Jr. is gone. And I think that there's a chance Bijan Robinson is gone. I think Devin Witherspoon's probably gone too. So take those guys away. Now let's talk about what trade backs would be. And again, 22 round one grades according to Scouts, Inc. Let's say you trade pick 13. Green Bay now has that pick. Originally it was the Jets. But let's say Green Bay wants to go to 11. According to the trade chart, you would be entitled to an extra fourth-round pick. Well, don't you think that that's probably worth it? I mean, the elite players in this class, Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson, they're probably all gone by that 11th pick anyways. So if you move back, now Green Bay may get the tackle that they really want, but isn't the extra fourth-round pick probably worth the difference between Peter Skoronski and Broderick Jones? They're both round one graded players. But you're getting an extra fourth-round pick. You're getting an extra player that's going to be on your team. And fourth-round picks are not normally just some old bum. That's actually a pretty nice pick. Let's say 16 with Washington. So let's say there's a quarterback there. And Washington wants to move up from 16. And you've decided, you know what, we don't like Will Levis. He takes bathroom selfies. We're not interested in that. We want a grown-up at quarterback. Well, according to the Patriots chart, to move from 11 to 16, you would add a third-round pick. A third-round pick is a starting caliber player. I mean, Nicholas Petit-Ferrer went in the third round, and he was your starting right tackle. Nate Davis was a third-round pick, and he just signed a $10 million a year contract. So you're talking about a starting offensive lineman you would be acquiring by moving back 5 spots. And let's say you moved back 5 spots. And let's say that the first, again, scouting, let's just take the first 11 players off the board. So now you're sitting there with the ability to pick, and you're only going to miss out on 5 of Jackson Smith and Jigba, Dalton Kincaid, Peter Skoronski, Paris Johnson, Broderick Jones, Darnell Wright, Lucas Van Ness, Kalijah Cansey, Nolan Smith, and by the way, I love Nolan Smith, Zay Flowers, Michael Meyer, and Emmanuel Forbes, the corner, out of Mississippi State. You're still getting a first-round player, and probably a lot of those guys, I think Forbes is a pretty good player. But you're getting an extra starter when you add that in there. Now, and I think that this trade chart may be a little bit off, but let's say you trade back with Minnesota. Minnesota, you would have to get a high second-round pick in return. Or, and they're at 23, or a first-round pick in next year's draft. Now, who knows how good that first-rounder is going to be or how much that's going to help you. But if you trade back to 23, there's still a pretty good chance you're going to get a player with a round one grade. So you all talk about need. And I don't believe in that. I think you take the best player available. But what these possible trade backs give you, if you trade with Tampa Bay to 19, you should pick up a mid-second round pick. Anything after 23, it is a mandatory first-round pick in next year's draft. And more. But the point I'm trying to make here is that I think a lot of these players are probably all similar in terms of how talented they are, the cluster. Like, what's the difference between Peter Skoronski, Paris Johnson, and Broderick Jones in terms of overall talent? Is it really that big? But every time that you make a move, you're adding an extra player. You're adding depth. You're adding a starter. Again, if it's a second-round pick, that should be a starter. So I don't think any of these guys, there's not one of these guys, and I would argue Nolan Smith out of Georgia is probably my favorite of all of these first-round grades that the Titans could add. Smith would be my favorite, but he's hurt coming off of the hamstring. But it's not like I wouldn't trade away the opportunity at Nolan Smith for a couple of extra players. So I do believe that if they go non-quarterback, they are looking to trade down. And then for all of you out there that are saying, needs, that's probably what they're going to do. Somebody calls up, let's say it's Tampa Bay at 19, they call up because they want to draft a quarterback and you don't like the quarterback that's there at 11, and you move back. Well, I don't know who's going to be there at 19. I don't know if one of the 3 tackles is going to be there, or if one of the 2 pass rushers, Van Ness or Nolan Smith, if they're going to be there, or if the corner's going to be there, or if the 2 receivers are going to be there, or if the 2 tight ends are going to be there. But guess what? I need all of those things. I could use an extra corner. Fine, let's take Forbes. I could use an extra tight end. Let's take Dalton Kincaid. But I'm also getting another starter down the road. I'm adding depth to my team. So if you go quarterback room, we got to talk about trading up. If you go non-quarterback, then I think now we're talking about trading down. And we're talking about, okay, would you be okay, even though you've got Jeffrey Simmons? Remember, Danico Autry's a free agent at the end of the year, and so is Tier Tart. Would you be okay if you traded down to 22 and you picked up a first-round pick in next year's draft, and you picked up a third-round pick in this year's draft, and you ended up with Kalijah Cansey, the defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh? And I would be, because I'm getting Cansey and I'm getting 2 other starters. One for 4 years in the third round and one for 5 years in next year's first round. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Trevor Maddich will join us next. 615-737-1025. We'll go over the quarterback situation with Trevor, and then we will also go over the non-quarterback situation with Trevor, and we'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Every day we are live and local.
They played tough. They came back and they still lost.
And your source for Nashville sports.
Yes, you want to have a fire sale, but who's going to buy those players?
We are Nashville's best sports talk. 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Attention, buckaroos. It's time for the Franklin Rodeo. So saddle up and hold on to your lasso. It's 3 days of bull riding, calf roping, western wear, funny clowns, and some of the most talented horses you've ever seen. Join the Stampede from May 18th to May 20th. The Franklin Rodeo is held at the Williamson County Ag Expo Park and is brought to you by Ram Rodeo, Franklin Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Williamson Health, Event 1FX, and Wesley Mortgage. Tickets on sale now at franklinrodeo.com. It's a buckin' good time.
The Beach Boys. Live in concert. May 25th, 26th, and 27th at Schermerhorn Symphony Center. Performing with the Nashville Symphony. The Beach Boys return to the stage. Tickets on sale now at NashvilleSymphony.org. Don't miss the Beach Boys live with the Nashville Symphony.
How's Wingstop sound? Crispy, juicy classic wings, sauced and tossed in those 11 soul-satisfying flavors. Paired with hand-cut seasoned fries, house-made honey mustard, blue cheese, or signature Wingstop ranch. I think you've heard enough. Get your flavor delivered at wingstop.com.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members of FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's business cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 3.5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp. Just go to ramp.com/sports. Ramp.com/sports. RAMP.com/sports.
Hi, I'm Jamie with Souls for Souls, a global nonprofit based in Nashville that provides shoes and clothing to people across the world. We're joining forces with 1025 The Game for the second annual Music City Celebrity Golf Tournament on June 7th at the Hermitage Golf Course. A portion of the proceeds from the tournament will provide new shoes to children experiencing homelessness right here in Nashville. I hope you'll join us for an afternoon of fellowship and fun, all in support of a great cause. Go to thegamenashville.com for more information and to register.
94.9 The Fan is your home for Hit City.
Tonight, your Nashville Sounds return to First Horizon Park to take on Omaha.
Swing and a miss, strike three. Sounds win.
Pre-game at 6:20.
On your home of Nashville Sounds baseball. 94.9 The Fan and the Fan app.
Hey, Smashville, this is Sean Henry. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 1025 The Game.
Stillman and Company, it is the Tuesday before the NFL draft, which means we check in with Trevor Maddich. And we are 1 week away. Trevor Maddich, ESPN, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics. When experience matters. Trev, let's start with the QB talk. Rand Carthon did not shut that down yesterday. In fact, I asked him, there were Jeremy Fowler rumors over the weekend on SportsCenter about Tannehill, and I asked him if he would shut down the Tannehill rumors, and he said, Ryan and I had a talk, and that'll stay between Ryan and I. And it's like, well, what does that mean? So let's start with QB. Trevor, what do you make of this rumor about C.J. Stroud's S2 score being in the 18th percentile and that tanking his draft stock, and the Texans supposedly are not interested in C.J. Stroud with the number 2 pick? What do you make of that? What do you make of the shakeup at the quarterback position in the draft?
Isn't that juicy? Right now, the Kardashians are calling their producers and saying, why can't we have this much drama? I mean, first of all, is it true that that score was that low? And it seems to be possibly true, but then who leaked it and why? And there are teams that might benefit, actually would benefit, if they like C.J. Stroud and don't want to have to trade up to get him, that they might want to undermine him to other teams that don't have the information about the test, because only about half the teams in the league subscribe to that. And so there are teams that don't have that information, and so maybe they're trying to cast doubt about that. And so, right now, C.J. Stroud has got to be wondering what in the world happened to him, because he was phenomenal in everything that he did in college. I mean, he was just phenomenal. And now all anybody's talking about is he's the Forrest Gump of this draft. And so what's true, I don't know, but man, I'd hate to be C.J. right now.
When I worry about C.J. Stroud, Trevor, I worry about him being Mariota. And I kind of pulled up their college stats, and they're very similar. Both the touchdown to interception ratio, the winning that they did in college, the completion percentage was off the charts for both of them. I mean, but they played in a college offense, and they played with players that you're not going to get to play in the NFL. I think in Marcus's case, it was more the uniqueness of the offense that they ran. In CJ's case, it's more of the talent that's around him. And when it comes to the processing and the impulse control and all of those things, Trev, what worries me is that I always felt like, looking back on Marcus's tenure, he checked all the boxes. He just didn't have it. He would just, throw an interception right over the middle, wouldn't see the linebacker. And when Tannehill got put in there, it was obvious Tannehill was better at making the checks at the line of scrimmage. And they kept changing offenses on Marcus. And I'm a little worried that the same things that slowed Marcus down, that's going to be what slows CJ down.
Well, changing the offenses on Marcus is an underrated anchor on his career in Indianapolis and really going forward, Tennessee, and really going forward from there. Hopefully CJ, if he ends up with the Titans, won't have to deal with that. When you look at Mariota in college, that up-tempo zone read offense that Oregon ran back then with Chip Kelly as the coach, it was still relatively new. It was new enough that college defenses had not caught up yet. Defenses in college now have caught up with that to a large degree, and they're not sitting ducks like they used to be. which is to say they used to just play vanilla, very vanilla. You knew as an offense what coverage, what scheme the defense was likely to be in, because the defensive coaches were afraid that if they changed the play call, their guys would be getting lined up when the ball was snapped, and that actually happened a lot. I did a telestrator breakdown back in the day with Kelly in Oregon of Oregon scoring a touchdown against Stanford because Stanford was looking to get a play checked on defense from their sideline, and they weren't ready for the snap, and Oregon just walked in. Well, now college defenses are better at communication. They understand how to get their play call in much more quickly, and they can adjust to it. So I think that Marcus's advantage in college was that up-tempo offense that college defenses didn't know. The advantage that C.J. Stroud has had in college is what you mentioned, Jared. It was the great players around him. I mean, at any given time, at any given moment as a starter, he had one of the greatest, if not the greatest, receiving corps in the country. In 2021, I think, would have been maybe the best that we've seen in a long time with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and it went on down the list. And so defenses had to play soft because they knew that if they came up and played man coverage, the Buckeyes receivers had multiple guys that could beat them and then break off a long touchdown run. So they had to play soft and keep things in front of them. That helped CJ. But I will say this about CJ Stroud, that when I evaluate him, I don't look at him for the plays where the receivers were wide open because the defense was afraid. I watch him when the pocket's closing down around him and he's got to drop a dime to a receiver who's covered. I mean, well covered. And I saw him do that over and over again. So I get it that he had superior receivers, and that gave him an unfair advantage. But when on a given play he didn't have an advantage, he still played exceptionally well. So the Titans evaluating this will have to decide whether or not that will translate into the NFL or if that will stay in college and it will be another Marcus Mariota college advantage situation that they can't duplicate at this level.
Trevor Matich is our guest here on the program. What do you make of, apparently Will Levis is the hot item right now. He's the betting favorite to go number 2 overall. What do you think it is about Levis that has won these NFL teams? Supposedly the Colts love him. I walked away from the press conference yesterday thinking that the Titans want to draft Will Levis. What is it about Levis that has won these guys over?
Well, it's just, first of all, you look at him. I mean, he looks like an outside linebacker who is chiseled out of granite. How many quarterbacks have you ever seen like that, by the way? You know, it's very few. And so how many of those kinds of quarterbacks
couldn't you say Tebow was built like that?
Yeah. And how consistent was Tebow's accuracy?
Tebow stunk.
And that was the issue with Levis this last year. It wasn't that he didn't have his offensive coordinator from the year before. It wasn't that he dealt with injuries. It wasn't that he had a lot of guys from 2021 go to the NFL and he was dealing with a roster that wasn't as good last year. Those were all things that were important. But to me, it was that when he had opportunities, he still wasn't consistent enough in taking advantage of those opportunities. And so you could say, yeah, look at that body, man. That guy's just fantastic. He can run. He's just chiseled. He's great. You know, but it's still, to me, for a quarterback, comes down to accuracy. Tim Tebow, never a better leader that I've ever seen on any level in sports. Never a tougher player than I've ever seen on any level in sports. But the accuracy wasn't there, and I still question that for Will Levis. And I've got to say this. You mentioned, Jared, a very good point, that right now the rumors are that Texas is not going to take a quarterback at number 2. If Bryce Young goes to the Panthers at number 1, then Texas will just go someplace else. Well, if they don't like C.J. Stroud, as the rumors suggest, because of a low cognitive score, then, and again, that's just a rumor, but if that's the case, why wouldn't they take Will Levis if Will Levis really is that good?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think right now, I think that's why Levis is the betting favorite. See, I actually disagree with you. I think all those things that you brought up, I think those are all important. You know, Emmanuel Forbes went on NFL radio and he said that he had a pick 6 at Levis. because he knew exactly what play they were going to run on offense. And he jumped a bubble screen and ran it back. I watched the Georgia game, and I was screaming at my TV. This was 2 weeks ago. I watched this game, and I'm screaming at my TV about the play calls. I thought that Scangarello was terrible as their offensive coordinator this year. I thought it was incredibly predictable. I thought Levis played hurt. When I watched the Georgia game, he put the ball right in the hands of receivers, and they dropped it. Poor tight end dropped 3 balls. They kept calling these wide receiver bubble screens, and the tight ends couldn't clear out the Georgia DBs. I thought he was the only guy on that offense, and I thought he kept them in the game. I mean, I really do. When you brought up all those things and say, well, this isn't the problem with Will Levis, I actually did think that was the problem. I do want to know what it would have looked like if you had flipped it and you had put C.J. Stroud on that terrible Kentucky offense last year, and you had put Will Levis with the Ohio State offense with Marvin Harrison Jr. and all those great receivers. And, I mean, I'm not saying I'm buying the Levis talk, but I don't hate him as much as everybody else seems to hate him, Trevor.
Well, you make a great point. And there are a lot of scouts in the NFL that say the same thing. And they're talking to the draft media people, telling them the same things as well. And you are seeing the same thing they're seeing, in that he performed not up to his standard last year. So why? And are those reasons things that either he can correct or that NFL coaching can correct? And if either of those things is true, then NFL coaches will just go grab them. They'll just go grab them. That's, and so I don't know that it's true. All I know is what I see. And I am, like I said, in evaluating C.J. Stroud, I don't evaluate him when he's got open receivers and plenty of time in the pocket. I evaluate him when things are dicey in the pocket and the receiver is covered and he's got to drop the ball right on the boundary with a good trajectory. And I've seen him do that a lot. It's the same way with Levis. And last year, he had a lot of things go against him. All those things that you mentioned, and all those things are fair. But I also saw in too many moments where he had an opportunity to hit a receiver and he threw the ball too far out of bounds for a corner route, or he had a crossing route and he stopped the receiver so he caught it, and then got tackled right there instead of catching it and keep on going for lots of yards after the catch. And those were things that give me pause. But the thing is, the things that you're talking about whether or not they're fixable about Will Levis, a lot of people believe they are fixable, and that was the problem last year.
Trevor Maddich is with us. I love Anthony Richardson. If I had to rank them for you, Trevor, it would be Richardson 1. This is who I want the Titans to draft. Richardson 1. Bryce Young 2, Tyree Wilson 3. And then everybody else after that we can argue and complain about. I think Richardson has all the talent in the world. I think he needs to sit on the bench. But I am absolutely all in on Anthony Richardson. And I know you're going to think that's crazy. But do you think that there is a chance that Anthony Richardson can hit that ceiling? And if he does hit that ceiling, how happy would you be with him?
There is a chance, because he only had 1 full year as a starter at Florida. And excuse me, when this is kind of a different thing than Levis for me, because Anthony Richardson is swinging for the fences. You're either going to hit a home run or you're going to end up on the ground with a strike, right? Mm-hmm. It's like Joe Namath calling the Super Bowl victory back in the day against the Colts before the game and then delivering, right? And
sure.
It's that kind of a thing, as opposed to somebody that has all the potential to do it, and they make that call, and then it doesn't work out.
Well, Trevor, what you're alluding to right here is, I think, exactly what Andy Reid did to get Patrick Mahomes and exactly what Buffalo did to get Josh Allen.
Yeah, it's what they did. The question is, do you believe that Anthony Richardson could be that guy? And it's hard to say. I mean, this is where evaluation is as much art as it is science, because Mahomes had 3 years of tape. Right? Josh Allen had a lot of tape at Wyoming. You got 1 year with Richardson. And so the thing that concerned me, with all that great physical talent that he had, why were there so many times when the offense didn't produce? Now, I get it that there were issues at wide receiver, offensive line. Florida's offense around him wasn't all that great. What?
That offense sucked. If you took their jerseys off and you put on, Virginia Cavalier jerseys, you'd say that looks like the Virginia Cavaliers with a good quarterback, because that offense, in my opinion, was Osiris Torrance, the guard, and Travis Etienne's brother, the freshman running back, and Anthony, and that was it. They were not the Florida Gators we're used to.
They had an outstanding head coach in Billy Napier, who at Louisiana was famous for making quarterbacks into stars in dual threat systems. And I thought that Richardson would really thrive under that. And part of the reason was the guys around him. You're right about that. But then we've talked about how much do you expect a quarterback to elevate a team around him that's not very good? And Richardson's, most of his best plays at Florida were not good offense. They were abysmal defense. They were busted assignments on defense, and next thing you know, Richardson's running down the field, and the safeties are trying to get him, and, wow, this guy's going to be a high draft pick. Look how great he is. And you go back and watch the tape, and the reason he was running free down the field to begin with was because the defense wasn't there in the right gap. That happened against Florida in the opener. The next game against Kentucky, he had a terrible game. Why? Because Kentucky's defense saw Florida lose their minds in terms of assignment. And Kentucky's resolved to be in the right place every time and force Richardson and the Florida offense to actually defeat them instead of intentionally opening up a gate. And Richardson wasn't able to get it done. Now, does that mean he can't get it done? Because that's the big question. We know he's a great athlete. My understanding is that he scored pretty well on that S2 test as well. And so how come he completed 53% of his passes? I mean, this is an offense that throws an awful lot of short passes. And so these are questions that coaches are going to have to decide, and scouts. Will Richardson be able to grow? Will they, with their NFL coaching, be able to coach him up to the next level? But he's different than Levis, in my opinion, because I think Levis's ceiling is pretty good quarterback. Richardson's ceiling is superstar, Michael Vick, unstoppable, electric guy. That's Richardson's ceiling, and he might hit it. My concern with him is that I didn't see him do the things in college that are the most basic necessities for quarterback, and that is to be able to make the easy throws look easy, make the medium throws look easy, and then have some consistency with the tighter windows. I didn't see any of those things with any consistency from him in college. Doesn't mean he can't do it. It just means that I haven't seen it yet, and that gives me pause.
Trevor Maddich is with us. I got one more quarterback question for you, and then we'll get to the non-quarterbacks. We'll do that next. Trevor Maddich, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters.
We are Nashville's best sports talk, live and local from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. When you want the national
Hey. I got this. I'll take it from here.
Okay, go ahead. Dying to hear this.
We have the best national voices that you'll find anywhere.
Who was more deserving of being thrown from their game?
I'm odd, so I get the odd picks.
They have a new coaching staff.
It's not a bad scenario for them.
We are 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
And 94.9 The Fan.
Attention all fire and safety line experts. Middle Tennessee's fastest growing fire protection company is looking for experienced service technicians, designers, and sprinkler system experts like you. Tired of working for a large corporate employer? Work for a company where you're more than just a number. Jarrett Fire Protection is owned and operated by Nashville natives and wants to invite you to grow with their amazing team.
Hi, I'm Jason Jarrett, owner of Jarrett Companies. I'm looking to hire experienced sprinkler experts and will offer a sign-on bonus of up to $5,000 for certified professionals. In addition to our great benefits that include a 401k match, PTO, and top pay with annual bonuses, we will also provide you with the top-of-the-line tools, trucks, and equipment that you need to grow your career. Our customer base is large and business is booming with many opportunities for advancement. Give us a call or go online to jarrettfire.com and apply today to become a member of our family and protect our community. That's JARRETT fire.com. Jarrett Companies, where we are above and beyond industry standards.
Hey, it's Jared. Are you looking to move? If so, do yourself a favor and reach out to my friends at TriStar Moving. You can be assured your move will be stress-free because they've got new utility vans to help with pack jobs to separate your high-value or fragile items from the bulk of your furniture, and their movers are carefully picked and highly trained. No one in the game is doing this. TriStar Moving is raising the standard in the moving industry. When you're ready to move, give them a call. TriStar Moving, 615-640-1219, or online at nationalmoving.org/radio, and tell them Jared Stillman referred you for 10% off. That's TriStar Moving.
You want a mower that delivers a quality cut and an exceptional ride. You need the Kubota Z200 series with the new K-Ride comfort system, designed to give you everything you need to glide your way to a perfectly manicured lawn. Visit your local Kubota dealer today.
Visit Coleman Tractor Company, your local Kubota dealer in Clarksville, Nashville, Paris, and White House.
Seems like everything costs more these days. Food, utilities, medical costs, you name it. But as prices go up, our family budget stays the same. Fortunately, with Farm Bureau Health Plan's Core Choice coverage, we can save $3,600 a year compared to the leading competitor. And we've got better coverage with a lower premium, lower deductible, free telehealth visits, and access to one of the largest networks available. Start saving today at fbhp.com or visit your local Farm Bureau office.
This is for the men who never settle, the ones who believe only quitters end a game in a tie, the type of guys who choose the bar with the biggest TVs to overcompensate for theirs at home. This is the Lodge mentality. This is Twin Peaks.
Nobody does happy hour like Twin Peaks, from tequila cocktails and an extensive bourbon category to top shelf spirits and cocktails served over ice balls. Local craft beers and handcrafted whiskey cocktails give you a drink menu second to none. Oh, and don't forget about the Twin Peaks 29-degree man-sized drafts.
They're insightful.
To me, you got a left guard situation you got to figure out.
Credible.
I trust this guy more than this guy.
But sometimes they just argue.
Why do you like the NFL playoffs? Those teams lose.
I don't want college football to be the NFL.
When they get...
Robbie Stanley and Joe Rexroad are Robbie and Rexroad. Weekdays from 6 to 9. Presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Strong opinions and a strong personality on your drive home. This is Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company, Trevor Matich is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics. When experience matters, the draft just a couple days away. Trevor, Hendon Hooker, I am worried about his bust potential. A 48 in the 48th percentile, the S2 cognition test. And a lot of these scouts are worried about that Tennessee offense, about seeing half the field, about the wide splits, about the matchups, and they think it's going to be very difficult for him to learn an NFL offense, or it will take time. In fact, one quarterback coach told Bruce Feldman he thinks it's a 3-year plan to have Hendon Hooker ready to play in the NFL. Are you worried about Hendon Hooker's bust potential?
I'm not worried about him as a bust. I think it might take a little bit of time because of that. But any quarterback, no matter what system they played in college, has a similar problem when they get to the NFL, and that's NFL defenses. The problem is less what their own offense is doing in the NFL. It is applying that to what defenses do. Because in college, remember, the coaches only get 20 hours a week with their players. And they've got to get the next generations ready because they've only got players, the best ones, only for 3 years. You know, some of them 4, occasionally 5, but they're constantly rotating in those young guys to get the next generation ready for the future. And they've got to do it in 20 hours, which means that the degree of difficulty and complexity of college defenses is nowhere near that of the NFL, and that affects quarterbacks, and it affects receivers as well. And so any quarterback, I mean, even Will Levis, who played a pro style in Kentucky and played a lot of great defenses in the SEC, still will face that same problem when he gets to the NFL. The question is, can Hendon Hooker do it? And what do we know from college? Well, we know his system was quite simplified, but we also know that according to his head coach, Josh Heupel, he was required to do a lot of things at a very fast tempo because that offense ran a lot of plays without a whole lot of space in between them. And Coach Heupel has been all over, the national media talking about how he had to set pass protection and change formations and motions and do checks at the line and do a whole bunch of things that NFL quarterbacks have to do. Now, once the ball was snapped, it was easier for him to read what to do because you've got your receivers super spread out wide, and it's really easy to find that college cover guy that's not very good. Okay, number 23, we're going to go to him if he's one-on-one. Well, okay, there's 23 over there. We'll just throw deep over that guy, right? But the other stuff, in terms of setting the protections based on the coverage look in the front, and all those other things that you have to do really fast before the snap in that offense, were things that he did very well, according to Coach Heupel. Now, does that mean it translates to the NFL? Not necessarily, but it means he did do it well in college. And there are guys in college that, don't really do that because they're not really asked to do that, because even at the college level, that wouldn't be their forte. But according to Coach Heupel, Hooker did do that well. So, I don't know that he'll be great in the NFL, but again, I look at Hendon Hooker's game, and it's hard for me to find something that makes me think, yeah, this guy is going to have some problems. He has to prove he can rise to the next step. But I don't see any glaring issues with the guy.
Trevor Matich is our guest. Trevor, I think we know the top elite talents. The Titans are going to have a shot at a Tyree Wilson or at a Will Anderson, probably not a Jalen Carter. But when it comes to picking at 11, if they don't go quarterback and they're sitting there and the guys on the board, for instance, the three tackles, Skoronski, Johnson, and Broderick Jones, do you think that any of those kind of guys, or an individual receiver, or an individual tight end, or one of the two pass rushers, Van Ness or Nolan Smith, do you think any of those guys are good enough to say, no, stay at 11 and pick that guy? Or do you think the Titans would be better off dropping back a few slots in the first round, adding a third, adding a second, adding a first next year, or adding something like that, an extra player, extra picks in this year's draft, and still picking one of those guys that Scouts Inc. gives a round 1 grade to?
Yeah, wide receiver, no. The closest one is Zay Flowers, in my opinion, out of Boston College because of his playmaking ability. But I wouldn't take him at number 11. That's just too high for him. When it comes to the edge rushers, there's some really good edge rushers. And if Wilson somehow drops, the Texas Tech guy, Tyree Wilson, if he drops into range for the Titans to trade up for that guy, that would be an interesting move. Yeah, people are talking about him going to Seattle at the lowest at number 5. Offensive line, though, they can get at number 11 a solid 10-year starter in the caliber of competing for the Pro Bowl year in and year out with any of those three guys that you're talking about. Now, of those, I like Skoronski the best. I like Broderick Jones that's Northwestern guy. I like Broderick Jones out of Georgia second. And then I like Paris Johnson out of Ohio State third, but they're very close to me. And I think any of them would be a very safe pick. Part of the problem is in this draft, once you get to about 15 or so, there's not a whole lot of love. Not a whole lot of surefire elite guys. You mentioned Nolan Smith, linebacker out of Georgia. I love that guy, right? Love that guy. You mentioned the pass rusher out of Iowa. I think he's got, because of his physical traits, just tall guy, he's got a chance to do some really great things. But I think from a safe pick standpoint, any of those three offensive linemen would be, okay, good, build from the inside out, and let's move on from there.
Wouldn't you rather take a pick later, though? So let's say, for instance, if the Titans are sitting there at 11 and those three tackles are there and they know that if they move to 17, there may be one of those three tackles there, but they will get, an extra second-round pick, for instance, to add in this year's draft. Would it be better to take that risk and get the third guy, in this case, Paris Johnson Jr., or even not end up with that guy, but end up with a Darnell Wright, or have to go with a different position, but you do know that you're getting the extra player in that second-round pick?
No, that would be a great situation for the Titans. And I think for fans watching the draft on Thursday, the first round unfold, the thing to watch for is, do any of those top four quarterbacks fall to where the Titans could take them at number 11? Because in order for the Titans to trade back, somebody has to love somebody so much at 11 that they're willing to trade up. And typically quarterbacks are first on the list of position group that someone will trade up for. And so if one of those quarterbacks falls down, and at 11, the Titans might start getting some calls. from teams behind them. Now they could trade down unless they're in love with one of those quarterbacks. That would be good. Another one is Jalen Carter. We talked about him a lot, Jared, in this pre-draft process, that he may be the most gifted athlete, the most gifted position player in this draft, defensive tackle out of Georgia, but because of some personal issues that happened to him, he may fall. But if he falls to 11, I doubt that he would. But if he did, he's the kind of guy that someone below would want to move up and take so that the Titans could get some draft capital by moving down. Because it's both things. I mean, who's going to be available there that someone's going to say, yeah, I would like that guy, but there's other guys I would like almost as much, and therefore not want to give that up. So as you watch the draft, look for those quarterbacks especially to see if somebody moves down. And right now the drama is that C.J. Stroud may move down. Now, moving down to 11 is a long way to fall, but that's what to look for. But, if the Titans can trade down, they'll be able to fill that offensive line need with guys that should be pretty good, especially on the inside. Kid out of Florida, kid out of Wisconsin, the center there. You've got a number of guys that can play. And so they'll have the chance to do that if they trade down.
Trevor Maddich, as always, enjoy the draft Thursday. We will chat very, very soon.
Thanks, Stuart.
Yep, Trevor Maddich on our program presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Rand Carthon said something yesterday. I'm not calling the man a liar, but I cannot believe that he was telling the truth. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Stuck at work without a radio?
Wait a minute. Disastrous.
I hate that.
It's got to be there.
That's okay. Download the Game Nashville app or go to theGameNashville.com and listen live. We are Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Golfers, tee it up at Edwin Watts Golf Shops for the hottest new arrivals from Titleist. Check out the new Pro V1 golf balls, designed for longer distance, more consistency, and unrivaled control. Swing by Edwin Watts Golf Shops and elevate your game with the new TSR Woods, engineered faster, longer, and straighter. Come in and get custom fit for free today. Edwin Watts Golf Shops, home of the 90-day satisfaction guarantee, unmatched expertise, unmatched service.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Hey, what's up? Teron Davenport here for Superbook Sports. Baseball season is back, and the push for the postseason is on for hockey and hoops. Make it all count this spring with Superbook Sports. Superbook is the best sports wagering app around, with a direct line to experienced bookmakers behind the counter in Las Vegas. Plus, check this. Get a $250 bonus when you sign up, deposit, and wager in the same day. Don't let spring pass you by without winning money with Superbook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problems? Call 1-800-889-9789.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance. For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-330-1991. That's 1-800-330-1991. Or go to SelectQuote.com. That's 1-800-330-1991. SelectQuote. We shop, you save. Full details on example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials.
Now, your Game Center update.
Brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. The NFL draft rumors and reports are flying high, with the first round starting on Thursday night. The latest involves quarterback Will Levis, as he is now the betting favorite to be the second overall pick. The Memphis Grizzlies fell to the Lakers in overtime last night as LA took a 3-1 series lead. The Seattle Kraken evened up their series at 2-2 versus the defending champs Colorado last night in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Avs D-man Kel McCarr has been suspended for one game following an interference penalty. There are 3 more Cup playoff games on schedule for tonight. Nashville SC made a trade today, sending attacker CJ Sapong to Toronto FC in exchange for defender Lucas McNaughton and some general allocation money. And the Nashville Sounds return to First Horizon Park this week as they begin a 6-game homestand versus Omaha. Coverage begins at 6:20 with first pitch at 6:35 on your home of the Sounds, 94.9 The Fan. This update is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. I'm Ian Safar for 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Broadcasting on Alexa.
I appreciate that.
And other smart speakers. 1025 and 1063.
1, 2, 3, 9. I think it was a good game. Had a couple of big plays.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Where you have a voice.
He had a competent coaching staff. You just play terrible and you keep playing.
And we have strong opinions.
What a whiny freaking crybaby response.
This is Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman. Presented by TriStar Moving on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks to Superbook Sports, live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. It is lying season. So I do wonder, do we give everybody a pass if they lie? If Mike Vrabel lies, do we give him a pass for it, Ian?
What is he lying about? Like a player?
Sure.
Interest? Yeah. If it's something like that, I think we can give him a pass, yeah.
Last year, I asked John Robinson, is there any chance you trade A.J. Brown on Thursday night? He said, I don't foresee that happening. That obviously was not the truth, but I think, again, it's lying season, so we kind of have to let that go a little bit. So Rand Carthon yesterday was asked just a very basic, generic question about the strengths in this year's draft. And when Rand Carthon said this, I thought, what? Go ahead.
The wide receiver class is, deep. The quarterback class, is deep as well. If we're leaning on, I think you said, Sports Center, if we're leaning on them, 4 guys should go, in the top 10 and another guy later. And then also offensive line, is a pretty deep draft in terms of just value.
Okay. First off, I'm going to let the Sports Center comment slide. Don't be bringing Sports Center into this, Rand. Even though I did bring in Sports Center when I asked him about Tannehill, which is where he was going with that. But I don't think he's telling the truth. And I'm going to tell you why I don't think he's telling the truth. I am not Mel Kiper Jr., nor have I ever pretended to be. But I do read a lot. And I trust Bob McGinn, for instance, who's been covering the Packers and covering the NFL for decades. I mean, longer than I've been alive. And at GoLongTD.com, they had a preview of the offensive linemen. And so let's use offensive line. He says that's a deep group. Again, the 3, wide receiver, offensive lineman, quarterback. This is from Bob McGinn's article on GoLongTD.com. Quote, is there an offensive lineman worthy of a top 10 selection based on draft standards over time? Quote, one scout said, not legit. Broderick Jones and Paris Johnson are the 2 that are going to go because we're in an era now where a kid that's a 5-star recruit comes in and it's COVID the first year, backs up, plays a little bit the second year, starts the third year. They have the measurables. They're the best in the class. This is the world we're in right now. Johnson and Broderick will both go in the top 10 or top 12, but their resumes are nowhere near a Joe Thomas or Jonathan Ogden or Walter Jones or Orlando Pace. Or Trent Williams, for that matter. An AFC talent evaluator said, clearly the path to first-round money and notoriety was wide open for Deron Jones after his destructive work in day 1 at the Senior Bowl. Quote, it was almost embarrassing the way he went out and was throwing people around. Then it was over. Jones decided not to practice the rest of the week or play in the game, and a month later at the Combine, he agreed to run 2 40s and do drill work, but he turned down the bench press, the jumps, and the shuttle runs. When Pro Day arrived in Columbus, Jones stood around refusing to weigh in. Oh, goodness. Apparently, it continues on with the offensive line group just about how bad it was, about how guys are going to be drafted ahead of themselves in this year's draft, according to one scout, talking about the offensive line and how bad it is. Quote, it's so bad, a scout said, This is a long-in-the-tooth NFL personnel executive. Quote, this is the worst offensive line crowd in the history of the draft, maybe. We have like 15 guys in our top 150. For an entire 32-team league, we need 320 linemen. It's so bad. There's going to be some reaches on offensive linemen in this draft. I think every lineman in the top 100 will go a half a round to a full round, if not 2 rounds higher than they normally would in a given year. So he's saying it's so bad that if you're taking a second-round offensive lineman, chances are last year that guy would have gone in the 4th round. Apparently, they say in this article, Charles Cross, who went 9th overall last year and started for Seattle, would by far be the number 1 guy in this year's class. So Rand says that this is a good class, but that right there said it wasn't. Then wide receivers. Again, Rand said that it's deep at wide receivers. Bruce Feldman, talking to a quarterback's coach, quote, I think this year's class of wide receivers is really weak. I mean, Rand's sitting here, he's saying, I think offensive lineman. Scout says, I think this might be the worst offensive line class ever. Rand says, wide receivers, quarterback coach, I think this wide receiver class is really weak. Maybe only 2 of them go in the 1st round, the quarterback coach said. I do think Jackson Smith and Jigba is a great player, but is he a slot only? They never get pressed at Ohio State. Great hands, and I like Jordan Addison, but I don't think he's a 1st rounder. I do like Zay Flowers. So, I mean, they're just talking about how bad the wide receiver class is, and they're talking about how bad the offensive line class is, and Rand is sitting here and telling us, yeah, I think that it's a deep class at wide receiver. Is it? I mean, if the Titans were to take Quentin Johnston, would you be excited about that?
No.
I mean, so I'm trying to think in my head why, like, again, it's lying season, and everything that Rand Carthon is doing and everything that he's saying should be in the best interest of the Tennessee Titans, regardless of whether or not it's true. So if Rand Carthon got up there and he just flat out lied to everybody, but it was in order to protect the draft strategy, we're not going to have a problem with that. This is lying season. This is what lying season is about. I think we should all accept it. But he's getting up there saying that the strengths of the draft are offensive line, and you've got, again, according to Bob McGinn, a long-in-the-tooth league executive who says that it's the worst offensive line class in the league's history, maybe. That's terrible. And I can't imagine that Rand Carthon would be, if this is the worst in history, if it's debatable, that this is the worst offensive line class in the history of the NFL. Like, I don't think Rand Carthon would think it's a good class. Like, I can understand Rand Carthon, if it was, I like the quarterbacks, but, it's an average quarterback class, but I like them. And then another guy saying, it's an average class, maybe a below average class. I don't really like them. Okay. One guy thinks they're average or above average. The other guy thinks they're average to below average. That's fine. That's within the range of disagreement. Worst in history, maybe, and deep, not the same. So I have to ask the question, was he lying? I mean, we know quarterback's not deep. There's 5 guys. Everybody else ain't worth a crap. The Fresno State kid, the Houston kid, the Purdue kid, they all stink. There's 5 guys. So I'm trying to figure out what the reason would be for Rand Carthon to lie, but this doesn't feel like a deep receiver class to me. I mean, I remember in 2020, all the draft gurus were saying this wide receiver class is one of the best receiver classes in the NFL. And I remember saying, well, I mean, if you're the Titans, you have to take one. Because if it's so good, how can you have this opportunity to draft a receiver and not draft a receiver? And, I mean, we all know that in the 2020 class, Henry Ruggs is in jail, but Jerry Jeudy hasn't panned out like we thought he would. But, like, for instance, Justin Jefferson is a freaking stud, and we know that. And there are even the later on guys in the 2020 class at receiver, like Gabe Davis with Buffalo, 4th-round pick, freaking stud. The next year they said, this receiver class is as good as last year's class. And that's Jamar Chase and that group. That's Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, you walked out of those 2 drafts with Des Fitzpatrick, which I thought was criminal. And the guy who made that decision is no longer employed. So, I mean, make of that what you will. But they told us those were deep classes. I look at this. This ain't a Jerry Jeudy class. Not a receiver. But I can't understand why Rand Carthon would just lie about that. But it does feel very much like he's lying. So if anybody has a suggestion as to what benefit that would give the Titans, I don't know. But it's just so funny to say. Play that cut for me again about the good classes according to Rand Carthon.
The wide receiver class is, deep. The quarterback class, is deep as well. If we're leaning on, I think you said, Sports Center, if we're leaning on them, 4 guys should go, in the top 10 and another guy later. And then also offensive line, is a pretty deep draft in terms of just value.
Quote, I think this is the worst offensive line crowd in the history of the draft, maybe. A long-in-the-tooth NFL personnel executive said. Oh, goodness. He starts off, he says, wide receiver. Quarterback coach, quote, I think this year's class of wide receivers is really weak. So I don't know. Somebody come up with why this would be an advantage to him to say that. But I mean, I don't know what to make of that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you want to weigh in, 615-737-1025 here on the program. Coming up next, let me say this Bruce Feldman thing where he's talking to NFL coaches and receivers coaches and, kind of they call it the confidential, where guys can kind of speak freely as anonymous guys. They see what I see. They love what I love. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
185! Every team needs a quarterback.
185!
That's why we have
Hasselbeck, bootleg, rollout, toss, touchdown!
Tim.
You can run good plays at the right time.
ESPN NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck gives his expertise on all things NFL.
You evaluate players, and then you're turning them over to the coaching staff.
Every Tuesday at noon.
At the right time.
With Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace. Tim on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Laying waste to your town. Mastodon. Gojira. The Mega Monsters Tour. May 2nd at Nashville Municipal Auditorium. With special guest, Lorna Shore. Tickets on sale now at LiveNation.com. Total sensory overload. Mastodon and Gojira.
Spring into action. Take the short drive to Social Furniture on the West Side. You'll be amazed with Social Furniture's huge selection of top quality, name brand furniture. Social Furniture has your dream furniture on sale now during our spring home makeover sale. Why shop at Social Furniture? Great furniture, great service, great prices. Full service, hassle-free delivery, and interest-free financing with no money down. Make Social Furniture a great place to furnish your home. If you want a deal, don't wait, shop now.
I shop at Social Furniture because of the money I saved and the way I'm treated.
If you're hiring, it can feel like you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. You can hope the right person comes along, or you can just use ZipRecruiter. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. In fact, ZipRecruiter has helped a lot of business owners find their needle in a haystack, like Marco, president of operations at Telly Tires and Auto Centers. Because Telly Tires has grown a lot in the last few years, Marco needed to hire everyone from a receptionist to a store manager to a head mechanic.
ZipRecruiter helps me find all the right people, even the most difficult jobs to fill. ZipRecruiter helps me keep my business running.
Take it from Marco and millions of other businesses who've used ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter can help you find the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/RADIO. ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
This week's Nashville's best deal is Bite a Bit Thai and Sushi in the heart of East Nashville. Get half off a $30 gift card while supplies last at thegamenashville.com/deals. Featuring all the best Thai food, sushi, and cocktails, plus an amazing bar and environment. You can eat a bit and bite a bit with this week's half-off deal. Check out BiteABitNashville.com. That's BiteABit in East Nashville. Half off at theGameNashville.com/deals.
For more than a century, AM radio has evolved to meet the needs of our community. In their car, at home, or on the job, more than 80 million listeners depend on AM radio each month. AM radio is also the backbone of the emergency alert system, which keeps us safe in dangerous times. It's reliable, free, and public safety depends on it. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Want to see our smiling faces? You can watch us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are good to go. Presented by Superbook Sports, voted #1 sportsbook in Vegas. You're listening to Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
I've got a bunch of texts today in terms of, am I excited yet? And usually I'm the one, if I know something big is coming up, I'm asking my wife, hey, are you excited? And she's like, don't talk to me about it until it's actually happening. And I think through osmosis, it's kind of rubbed off on me right now. So I'm just trying to really collect the final bit of information and then just shut my brain off, for the next, couple of days till we get on the clock, And so I'm not clouded and trying to hear these final rumors and being nosy. But I think once we get on the clock, I think there'll be some nerves, watching how this whole thing shakes out. And, but, at that point, it's just like a game. Once the ball's kicked off and you've got your first hit, then now it's time to go.
There you go. That's Ran Carthon ahead of his first draft. I promise your phones. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, 615-737-1025. Lorenzo is up next and has been waiting patiently on Ran Carthon. What's up, Lorenzo?
Hey, what's up, Jared, man? What's going on, man? Hey, in the words of Aaron Rodgers, relax. And I say that to say that, what do you expect Rand to do? Do you expect him to give the farm out early? That's almost like working for Apple, and you know what the iPhone 15 is going to have, and then you tell people before it's released.
Sure.
Of course, we don't want Rand to think. Of course, we don't want Rand to think that the offensive line, this is a great offensive line. We don't want to know much. We don't want to give teams an opportunity to think what we're going to draft at the 11th pick. So I don't think Rand is lying. He's just playing chess right now. So just
you
give
think
him
that threw people off? Like he's trying to throw the other teams off?
Absolutely. Most GMs do that. You're not going to hear GMs say, oh, this is going to be the greatest receiver draft ever. All receivers are just playing possum right now. All the GMs are playing possum right now.
Okay. I don't disagree with that.
Lying.
But what benefit does Ran Carthon get out of that, right? Like if I'm Jacksonville and Ran Carthon says, yeah, it's a deep receiver draft, a deep quarterback draft, and a deep offensive line draft, and I'm Jacksonville, and I look at my board and I'm like, these guys suck. Like that's not going to change what Jacksonville thinks.
Right, but it would change those that are considering going up to 11. It would change that. If a team thinks that you're going to draft a lineman, there might be a team that trades up to get a lineman. So I think right now, just play possum right now. Having big information is not a big deal, I don't think, at the moment.
Okay.
I really don't.
So thank you for your call, Lorenzo. Let's think about it like this.
Sir.
Let's use the 11th overall pick as, let's say that's what that was about. And so Rand wants you to think offensive line, quarterback, receiver on night one. Well, that would lead us to believe, Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, that he's probably not thinking quarterback, wide receiver, or offensive line in round one based off of Lorenzo's opinion. Fair?
Okay.
All right. So let's just say Scouts Inc., 22 round one grades. So no Bryce Young, no C.J. Stroud, no Will Levis, no Anthony Richardson, no Jackson Smith and Jigba, no Zay Flowers, and no offensive line. No Paris Johnson Jr., no Broderick Jones, no Darnell Wright, no Peter Skoransky. So that means we should be thinking that it would be Nolan Smith or Lucas Van Ness, the pass rushers, or the tight ends, Dalton Kincaid and Michael Mayer, or the corner, Emmanuel Forbes, who came on a visit. So should we be thinking about them and not even thinking about quarterback when it comes to Monday because he's trying to throw him off the trail?
It's like you have to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist of trying to think about, are the GMs mentioning these certain position groups or players because they want people to not think they like them, or they want people to think they like them, or do they mention them to make people think they don't like, it's hilarious.
Right. So I just don't see where, and the word he used about offensive line was value. And I do wonder what he meant by that.
That feels like a later in the draft kind of thing, doesn't it?
Right. Like, I think I can get a guy in the 6th round that may be able to play guard.
Yeah, can I find a guard in the 4th or 5th round?
Brad is up next on Rand Carthon. Thank you for calling. What's up, Brad?
Hey, guys. So he stole my thunder a little bit, but, yeah, I'm going to be honest. I want my GM to dabble in misinformation, smoke, voodoo. I don't care what he's got to do to throw everyone off the track, but I want him to be shrewd and deliberate and, lie, baby, lie at this time of year. My second thing, though, that I wanted to talk about is, hey, I really, really want them to move up and get their guy at QB. I also think that they're just not going to have enough ammo to get the one they probably want. And then, obviously, the second best scenario from there is everyone says, we'll just trade back and get more assets. I would love them to do that, but you have to have someone that wants to trade with you.
Sure.
My biggest thing is what we're not talking about enough is if it's at 11, we couldn't trade up to get the guy we want, and we can't find anybody to trade back, and we have to take someone. And I heard Trevor say, hey, that the safe pick is the offensive lineman. But I hope that doesn't happen. I really, even though it might go a little early, I would love if we had to stick and pick at 11 to hear the announcement that we picked Zay Flowers and have to defend that over picking the safe Skoronski. I'll just hang up and listen.
Yeah, my problem with that, thank you for your call, Brad, is that, I mean, a lot of people don't think Zay Flowers is that good. Like, I understand the idea of, like, well, Skoronski's a safe pick, but they also think he's that good. They do not think that Zay Flowers is that good. That's the problem. So if you're taking the 24th best player with the 11th pick, now, that's where it's an issue. I'm going to tell you all right now, and I was just looking at it, a second ago, I was looking at the board. And, to me, let's take the quarterbacks out of this. Because I think everybody knows where I stand at quarterback. I like Anthony Richardson, and I would do what it takes in order to get Anthony Richardson. But when it comes to the players that could legitimately be available to the Titans, if they're stuck in the situation that Brad was talking about, where they're on the board at 11, no one wants to trade for that pick, all the players that we would expect to be there are there. So Will Anderson's not, Tyree Wilson is not, Devin Witherspoon is not, Christian Gonzalez is not. Those players are not there, and the running backs aren't, and the quarterbacks aren't there. And you're sitting there at 11. I really like Nolan Smith, the pass rusher out of Georgia. And I know it's not a need right now. But long term, you can never have enough pass rushers. And I think we can all agree about that.
I was kind of feeling that way about corner a little bit, too, for some reason.
The problem is that if Gonzalez and Witherspoon are gone, there's not a guy
kind of reaching
to take.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, Nolan Smith, I mean, that's a round one player. A couple of years ago, the Giants had 3 picks in the first round. In 2019, they drafted Daniel Jones 6. They drafted Dexter Lawrence in the middle of the round, and they drafted DeAndre Baker, a corner out of Georgia. And Mel Kiper gave them a bad grade, because he thought they reached on Daniel Jones. And I remember reading that day on that Friday that, Mel Kiper gives the Giants a bad grade. And Floyd kind of got mad. Now, Floyd likes Mel, but Floyd kind of got mad. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, they drafted 3 first-round players. I mean, you can bitch all you want about, well, he should have been the 13th pick and not the 6th pick. But at the end of the day, if you've got 3 first-round picks and you draft 3 first-round players, you can't say that's a bad draft. And that's where I look at it with, okay, like Nolan Smith, for instance. He may not be the 11th best player in this draft. And if you pass on the 11th best player in this draft, then the Houston Texans at 12 are probably going to draft him. So I want to take the 11th best player to keep them out of the hands of the Texans. And then if they end up with some schmo like Darnell Wright, good for them. But I didn't want him. Well, I don't want to take the safe pick. I want to take the wide receiver because I need a wide. You can't do that. Because then the Texans end up taking the guy that you should have taken. 615, and now you have to play against him. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. More of your phones as promised. Plus, more importantly, John McClain has the latest on what the Texans are going to do with the 2nd overall pick. The betting favorite is Will Levis. and I think he's the quarterback the Titans want. What does John McClain think the Texans are going to do? We have the intel. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game.
Hey, this is Matt Duchene, and this is Smashville.
Drummond down the left side with Duchene. Duchene scores! Matt Duchene with the overtime winner.
You're listening to the flagship of the Nashville Predators Radio Network, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
33 hours of savings this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Electronic Express. These deals are so hot they only last 33 hours. Get a Hisense 65-inch 4K TV for just $349, or a JBL Bluetooth speaker for just $59. Save up to 50% on 4K TVs, computers, housewares, appliances, and more. Don't miss out on a Go Wise air fryer for just $79, or an Amana laundry pair for just $449 each. Now through Saturday. Shop online or at all Electronic Express locations.
Do you have a VA loan? In this housing market, homeowners with VA loans have access to a ton of instant cash. Hey, Willie Donick here. Do you need cash to pay off credit cards and other high-interest loans? How does a check for 80 or 90 grand sound right now? Loan Pronto is helping veterans every day get the money they need with a quick and easy zero-cost cash-out refi with zero closing costs. With a VA loan, it's really cool because you can access up to 100% of your home's value. That's 100%. Use that money to pay off credit cards, home equity lines, car loan. Consolidate all your payments into one check per month and close in 2 weeks. Most homeowners who do this end up cutting their overall monthly payments by $800. And Loan Pronto's all-digital process makes it fast and easy. They're doing loans with super low APRs, and they love working with veterans. Call now. See what your options are. Call Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Hi, this is Jamie from Souls for Souls. I hope you can join us on June 7th at Hermitage Golf Course for the second annual Music City Celebrity Golf Tournament. We've partnered with 102.5 The Game to provide shoes to students experiencing homelessness right here in Nashville. Go to thegamenashville.com for more information and to register.
Attention all fire and safety line experts. Middle Tennessee's fastest growing fire protection company is looking for experienced service technicians, designers, and sprinkler system experts like you. Tired of working for a large corporate employer? Work for a company where you're more than just a number. Jarrett Fire Protection is owned and operated by Nashville natives and wants to invite you to grow with their amazing team.
Hi, I'm Jason Jarrett, owner of Jarrett Companies. I'm looking to hire experienced sprinkler experts and will offer a sign-on bonus of up to $5,000 for certified professionals, in addition to our great benefits that include a 401k match, PTO, and top pay with annual bonuses. We will also provide you with the top-of-the-line tools, trucks, and equipment that you need to grow your career. Our customer base is large and business is booming with many opportunities for advancement. Give us a call or go online to jarrettfire.com and apply today to become a member of our family and protect our community. That's JARRETT fire.com. Jarrett Companies, where we are above and beyond industry standards.
Nashville Sounds Baseball lives on 94.9 The Fan. Catch every pitch.
Swing and a miss, strike three.
Every hit.
That's a base hit.
Every run.
Looking up, it's gone.
On your home for Sounds Baseball. 94.9 The Fan and The Fan app.
Hey Nashville, this is Vanderbilt football head coach Clark Lee. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game, and the Game Nashville app.
Maybe the number one overall pick, as Reddit was reporting today. What happened with Will Levis, you think, during this process?
Yeah, I've learned something over doing the draft stuff. Never dismiss anything. I don't care if it comes from Reddit. I don't care if it comes from the postman. I don't care if it comes from the guy who served you your sandwich at the restaurant. Yeah. There's nothing a sure thing at this point. So you don't ever dismiss anybody. But I think Bryce Young's the first quarterback. Will Levis could very easily be the second quarterback. I've heard he's actually had great meetings with teams, and he's well liked by a lot of buildings. The connection with the Colts, there's no natural connection with saying, well, the offensive coordinator coached him here and this guy likes him here. I just have heard from a lot of people around the league, mostly from people outside the Colts building, that they are hearing that there's a bunch of fans in that building, and it's been that way for quite some time.
There you go. That was Peter Schrager on the Pat McAfee Show talking about Will Levis, the betting favorite to go number 2 overall. In fact, I had it up on a tab and I screwed with the tab. That's my bad. But I think it was plus 130 earlier today for Will Levis to go number 2. He's the favorite at both number 2 and number 4. Oh, we have a change, Ian.
Oh, do tell, please.
According to FanDuel Sportsbook, Tyree Wilson, the pass rusher out of Texas Tech, is now the favorite at plus 150 to go number 2. Will Levis is plus 195.
All right. Well, we got some movement.
Tyree Wilson is also the favorite to go number 3. Will Levis is the favorite to go number 4, which takes us to the general, John McClain. And he was on Hot Mic with Chad and Jonathan Hutton earlier today. And all the talk, the S2 score, C.J. Stroud, how far is he dropping? What's the deal with the Texans and Stroud? And remember, 2 weeks ago, John McClain said, if Bryce Young goes 1, C.J. Stroud goes 2. This is what John McClain said about the latest on the Texans and Stroud.
Are you 100% buying that the Texans are completely out on C.J. Stroud, or is there a chance
I am.
You're buying that?
I'm buying that. And I don't know why. I've talked to some people.
Let me change my mock draft right now. Also,
NFL people. And if NFL people say, of course, that S2 cognition test, which he scored 18, and Bryce Young had a 98, Will Levis a 93, that works against him. But they also talked, everybody looks at the Georgia game. Well, you could look at the Rose Bowl the year before when he didn't have Chris Olave and he didn't have Garrett Wilson. They opted out. And in the last game, he did have Jackson Smith and Jigba, who had over 300 yards, and he had a fantastic game. But they do put stock into every throw. What kind of throw was made? Where was it thrown? What kind of coverage? How did he adjust to coverage? I know everything we see on highlights. We don't see lowlights. You know, the NFL people watch every throw. So they see the good and the bad. And not every throw is perfect, of course. So that seems to be working against him, that it does work against him, that he had great receivers, that it was more because of them than him. I'm not buying it. I can buy the S2 cognition results.
So John's saying he thinks it is the S2. Now, here's what's crazy. The Texans don't subscribe to S2. But John is saying they are out. The Houston Texans at 2, Nick Caserio, they are out. They're not interested in C.J. Stroud. Let's put that off to the side for a second. Now, we just told you the betting favorite at FanDuel is Tyree Wilson now with the number 2 pick, the pass rusher out of Texas Tech. For the last couple of days, it's been Will Levis, the quarterback out of Kentucky. Now, when I started the show today, Will Levis was the betting favorite. Now, Tyree Wilson is the I almost wonder if it's like, you know, the people heard John McClain and they went to FanDuel. Here's what John McClain said about his mock draft.
I think that they like Tyree Wilson more than Will Anderson Jr. as an edge rusher. My last mock draft is due on Wednesday. I'll turn it in, and right now I'm leaning toward Tyree Wilson with the 2nd overall pick. And I believe that at number 12, they could trade back up for a quarterback. But if they have a shot at Hendon Hooker, I'm putting Hendon Hooker in there for the 12th pick. But I also think, and I'll tell you guys, I've talked to in the last week, and I try to wait as long as I can to not bother people I know too much. But I've asked 2 former head coaches or offensive coordinators, quarterback coaches, 5 in all, to tell me what they think about the quarterbacks besides Bryce Young. And 4 of the 5 really like Hendon Hooker, think he's going in the first round, think he's going to go higher than people think he is. And so I wouldn't have a problem if the Texans had him. Actually, at this point, the Texans are so desperate for a quarterback, I don't know how they could pass one up at 2, because once you pass one, you pass up 4 choices if they do that. And I got a feeling they're going to take a quarterback, but there's so much scuttlebutt about Tyree Wilson and an edge rusher. I'm going along with the scuttlebutt unless I hear something that makes me change my mind. But they cannot come out of the first round without a quarterback unless they think they're going to trade for Trey Lance.
Okay. So, I mean, it's so funny. And I started the show talking about this today, about the difference between what I would do and what I think they're going to do. And this is where I feel like John McClain is kind of held up on the Texans at 2, because what John would do is he would go quarterback. And I can't imagine Nick Caserio. This is his third year as general manager. You know, the first year, Deshaun Watson decides he doesn't want to play, and then they got to deal with all the bull crap and everything else, and they draft Davis Mills. And so you really don't necessarily get a quarterback. But at the same time, then you do get a quarterback because you got Davis Mills and you're working the Watson. Okay, fine, whatever. Last year, Davis Mills lit up the Titans so bad in that 2021 finale that they said, hey, let's give him another chance. And the quarterbacks last year sucked. So we understand that. So, okay, don't get a quarterback. Now you're so bad. All year, everybody knows they got to get a quarterback. I mean, now the Deshaun thing's over. They got all the picks from Cleveland. They're freaking terrible. And they're not going to get him. And everybody says that it's about that Colts game, that they ended up winning, that they're not getting that pick. And that is technically true. But you want to know the real reason why the Houston Texans are not getting a quarterback or are not getting the quarterback they like, Bryce Young? Ian, you want to know the real reason why?
Why is that?
Because Malik Willis sucks. That meaningless game in that 1-degree weather where tickets were as low as $6. I mean, it was a preseason crowd because it was so cold and so meaningless, and Malik was so bad. The Texans don't have a quarterback. The idea that Nick Caserio could walk out of this draft without a quarterback is crazy. So John is struggling between here's what I would do, and here's what I think they're going to do. So he thinks they're going to go Tyree Wilson, but he wouldn't do it because he would go quarterback because he has a brain. Now, here's the part that I think totally throws me for a curveball, which is we know a quarterback's going one. We talk about there being 4 quarterbacks. We should talk about 3 because Bryce Young, let's not even worry about him. So Stroud and the S2 test and the rumors surrounding the S2 test still bother me. Richardson, he's incredibly raw. And while I think every general manager should do their job and not try to protect their job, and if he's got the talent that they say he has, I think you need to come up with a plan. You need to figure it out. But that he's got that talent, you need to harness that rocket ship. But that's what I would do, not what everybody else would do. And then there's Levis, played in a pro-style system, played on a bad team, played through injuries, but he might suck. That's kind of where we are. I mean, I woke up this morning, and I still kind of think this, that Houston's going quarterback at 2, because how could you walk out of this draft without a quarterback? Indy's going quarterback at 4, and then there's the Raiders in there, and the Seahawks don't have a long-term plan at quarterback, and the Lions could get out of Jared Goff after this year, and Atlanta with Desmond Ridder, they're kind of a wild card. And I'm like, you might, if you want one of these guys, you may have to get up in there. But then if Tyree Wilson goes number 2, and John says he's mocking Tyree Wilson at number 2, even though he wouldn't do it, the betting odds are saying Tyree Wilson at 2, then maybe what Mark Dominic said earlier today on Chase and Michelle about his strategy, if he were the Titans at finding a quarterback, may actually come to fruition. Here's what he said.
If I'm Rand Carthon, I don't think I'm being aggressive about these 2 quarterbacks. I'm kind of letting them come to me, because I do know that the next year's class is a really loaded class. If this class is good, I think next year's is even better. And so I don't force it to happen. I let it happen. I think that's an important part that GMs have to do in these draft classes.
Okay, so I don't care about next year's draft class, but what Mark's saying is that these guys aren't good enough to jump up in there to try to get him, at least in his opinion. So I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know. John McClain thinks Tyree Wilson. FanDuel, the betting favorite, is Tyree Wilson. And what have I said the whole time when it comes to, in my opinion, non-quarterbacks in this draft? Who have I always talked about?
Yeah, I think you like Tyree Wilson.
Tyree Wilson. Because I'm not a Will Anderson guy, and Jalen Carter's got his issues. I'm a Tyree Wilson guy. So now if Houston goes Wilson at 2, and again, just the tone and John McClain talking about Wilson at 2 was like, I'm going to put him in my mock draft at gallerysports.com, even though I don't think that's what should happen. It's not very good, John McClain. But, I mean, that's what he, just the resignation that's what the Texans are going to do. I mean, how does that change it from the quarterback angle? Does that put Indy in the situation where it's Stroud and Levis and we don't know who to go with? And then what do you do? 615-737-1025, your phones, because they're right there. We'll do them next. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Those are my guys and my friends. Sometimes replacing equipment in your home can be overlooked until something breaks. But there are actually big problems that can occur from old, outdated, vintage HVAC systems. Older systems have higher repair costs, and they can result in higher utility bills, and even worse, they can break down when you need them the most. This month during Hiller's Vintage Showdown, they're giving away a free HVAC system to the owner of the oldest unit. It's easy to enter. Just go online to happyhiller.com, submit a picture of your old unit, plus everybody wins with trade-in credits and 0% interest financing for up to 48 months on replacements. Hiller's work is backed by the Happy You'll Be Your Services free guarantee, and Hiller is now offering convenient, quick online booking. Select the appointment time that works for you, and you'll get an instant confirmation. These deals are only happening for a limited time, so make sure you call now. And, of course, that's my friends, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys, call the Happy Face Truck today.
When it comes to Nashville sports,
locking up Jeffrey Simmons, clearly that was a priority for them.
He knows his stuff.
A little bit good, a little bit bad.
And knows how to push the right buttons.
He's coming off an ACL tear, and he's 25 years old, so you cannot ignore that.
Join Outkick's Chad Withrow every Friday at 5 with Stillman and Company. Withrow.
What I hate more than anything is people that are phony and not true to themselves.
Is on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
When the game goes into overtime. But the game goes into overtime. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Pick up Bud Light at your local convenience store today. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch Bud Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
312 Pizza Company is a proud sponsor of Nashville Sounds Baseball on 102.5 The Game.
Attention Buckaroos, it's time for the Franklin Rodeo. So saddle up and hold on to your lasso. It's 3 days of bull riding, calf roping, western wear, funny clowns, and some of the most talented horses you've ever seen. Join the Stampede from May 18th to May 20th. The Franklin Rodeo is held at the Williamson County Ag Expo Park and is brought to you by Ram Rodeo, Franklin Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Williamson Health, Event 1FX, and Wesley Mortgage. Tickets on sale now at franklinrodeo.com. It's a buckin' good time.
Hey, it's John Tesh. You know why insurance companies use all those cute and funny characters? To distract you from realizing you're only getting one option. If you want to compare prices, you're forced to visit multiple websites just to get one quote at a time. But not with Zander Insurance, because they work for you. Zander is a broker that shops dozens of top companies to find the best competitive rates for the coverage you need, and they keep reviewing your policy every year to make sure you're getting the best value. They're always available to answer questions, handle problems, and make sure that when it comes to insurance, your life is simple and hassle-free. You even have direct access to their senior management team. If your current company or agent doesn't do this much for you, let Zander Insurance help. Compare rates online at Zander.com or call 800-356-1780 for that personal touch. When Zander works for you, you're going to see the difference. Again, that's 800-356-1780, or you can visit Zander.com with no characters needed.
Start your day with a cup of Joe. Ugh, he's going to think that's stupid. Wait, what? Robbie Stanley and Joe Rexroad are Robbie and Rexroad. There, that sounds better.
Thank you so much.
Weekdays from 6 to 9. Presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Strong opinions and a strong personality on your drive home. This is Stillman and Company, presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Steve, let me start with, first of all, thanks for joining us. What you think Arizona will do with the number 3 pick? What would you do if you were still the GM of the Cardinals?
Well, I think the situation that they're in right now, Dan, I think that there's a good chance that they would trade back. That being said, it's easier said than done because of the situation. When you're sitting there at number 3, you have to have a trade partner. Obviously, the trade has to work for both parties, and there has to be a player that the other team wants to come up for.
There you go, that's Steve Keim, the former Arizona general manager. Boy, you talk about farming somebody else's land. These GM types, they don't like to do that. It's, I don't want to farm somebody else's land. But he's the former Arizona GM, and Dan Patrick just starts off saying, hey, what would you do if you were still the GM in Arizona? It's like, oh, God, I don't want to do this to Monty. But he went ahead and did that, and I do not rule out the Titans trading up to number 3. That's something we'll be keeping an eye on. Back to your phones. As promised, again, John McClain does not want to mock Tyree Wilson to the Texans at 2 because he wouldn't do that, but he keeps hearing Tyree Wilson at 2, and so John McClain is mocking Tyree Wilson at 2 to the Texans, and Tyree Wilson is the betting favorite, according to FanDuel Sports. Mike from Pennsylvania. If the Texans do make the pick for Tyree Wilson, Arizona will not trade 3 because they will jump on Will Anderson, which would leave the Colts with 3 out of the 4 quarterbacks. Let me tell you something. I think everybody in the world is saying if Indianapolis is sitting there with that 4th pick and 3 of the 4 quarterbacks are available, everybody says they love Will Levis. Peter Schrager said that today. ESPN's been saying that for weeks, that they love Will Levis. They probably didn't think they were going to be in the market for C.J. Stroud. They have the actual S2 scores. So if the S2 guy who went on the Pat McAfee show yesterday and said that the scores that he saw leaked, that 2 of them were completely inaccurate, Indianapolis would know if that S2 score is right or wrong. So a lot of people would say, well, Indy is going to be in the spot where they have to decide between whether or not they want to go with Stroud or Levis. If I was on that pick, now again, I'm not the Colts, and the Colts do a lot of stupid stuff that I would never do, and you know that. But if I was on that pick and I had the 3 quarterbacks available, Ian, you know who I'm taking.
Yes, I do.
I'm taking Richardson. And I'm running the card up there to take Richardson. Texter says to play on the S2 league, it would be smart by the Titans to leak that in an attempt to prevent Houston from drafting a potential superstar quarterback. What would be crazy? This is how you would know that the official Jared Stillman conspiracy theory, which I do think that we have to amend with even more plots or twists to the conspiracy theory. We didn't know that Tim Kelly went to Ohio State or was with that Ohio State group with Vrabel and them. And we didn't know. Well, we did know, but we didn't bring this up because we didn't think to bring this up at the time. But then again, Tucker Carlson just got fired. So maybe rolling out more conspiracy theories is not a good idea for us professionally. I'm not so sure on that one. But, this idea, I'm not saying the Titans did leak to Bob McGinn. Because what I would need to do is I would need to see the 15 teams that have the access to the S2 test. And then I would need to see, okay, who has a connection to the Packers? Because Bob McGinn, Green Bay guy, think of it like Paul Kaharski reporting something when Bob McGinn's reporting something. So it's a Green Bay guy, so somebody's got to know him from Green Bay. And they got to have access to the S2 test and a dog in the fight in order to leak it. And then the S2 people made it sound like they leaked Stroud incorrectly or at least without context. So I hear all this and I'm like, okay, who has the connections that would have more skin in the game or more reason to do this than the Titans, who have Chad Brinker as their number 2 in their front office, and he has 15 years of experience as a top guy in Green Bay. Because right now, to that texter's point about keeping the Texans from drafting Stroud, I do think that could be on the table here. Texter said, is it just this year's class, though? I read somewhere within the past year or so that college football just isn't producing the caliber of offensive linemen that it used to. Unfortunately, this may be the new norm for offensive line classes. Let me say this about the offensive line. I don't know how offensive linemen go from being rookies to getting better in the NFL without just playing and being terrible for a little bit and then kind of figuring it out along the way, because you can't practice because they don't wear pads anymore. They have 2-a-day practices in pads. During training camp, there's like 10 days in pads. So I don't know how an offensive lineman whose job is to thump gets better at thumping when they never thump. That's the one saving grace I give Petit Ferrer is, yeah, I thought he kind of sucked last year, but he was a rookie, so maybe he'll be better because he at least got the experience last year of thumping every week. If not, he just stinks. Texter says the quarterback talk doesn't matter until you get a left tackle. And what a problem for Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow hasn't had an offensive line in 3 years. Torn ACL, Super Bowl, AFC Championship game. Now, if Joe had a better offensive line, they may have 2 trophies. But, again, you can't say that you can't win without an offensive line. Joe does. You get the right quarterback, I'm not sure it matters. Mike said, Jared, you asked John Robinson last year before the draft if he was going to trade A.J. Brown. Sounds like you may have planted the seed in his head. I don't think I did that. I would love to know what I'm actually responsible for around here. Like what the Jared Stillman takes, the drum banging.
I've heard we're responsible for A.J. Brown getting traded. All types of stuff. Firings.
Oh, anytime somebody gets fired, it's always our fault.
Yes.
Unless it's somebody that we like when Peter
Wisenhunt,
Laviolette got fired,
Stallings.
no one was. Oh yeah, no one blamed us for that. But when it's somebody else, like we always get blamed for it. We got blamed for John Robinson getting fired, and we said you shouldn't fire John Robinson. So, make of that what you will. Tomorrow is a very special day on the program. We've never done this before. And honestly, this is going to be very taxing on all of us, but especially Ian. So tomorrow at 5 o'clock, we're going to have the first ever official Stillman and Company mock draft. Now, here's what we're going to do. Normally, 5 o'clock on a Wednesday is Jared versus Joe. I will have 8 teams. Caroline will have 8 teams. Joe will have 8 teams. Robbie will have 8 teams. And we'll all be together tomorrow. And Ian will run the draft. We'll have a minute and a half for each pick. And if you make a trade, you have to text it to Ian in order to make the trade. And then the trade gets announced, just like the draft. And then you've got a minute and 30 to pick them. And you represent the 8 teams. And I will just say this. I tried to be fair. I tried to give as many interesting teams and high-pick teams and all of that equally. It's tough. Like, I had to assign somebody to Miami, but they don't have a first-round pick. Or I had to assign somebody to the Rams, and they don't have a first-round pick. I tried my hardest to do all of that. But at the same time, I did give myself the Titans. So I am making the Titans pick tomorrow. Which I think, who would that put on the clock? Carolina tomorrow, although that's not really fun because everybody knows who you're going to pick. Let's see. For tomorrow, Carolina. Joe is on the clock at 5 o'clock tomorrow in our first ever Stillman and Company mock draft. We're out of here. We're back tomorrow at 2. One more show until draft day. ESPN Radio's next.